Hello everyone, I'm here. Greetings, welcome to another Deepest Lore. And we have a packed lineup for you today. Joining me as ever is Simon Roberts.
Good
Hello,
morning,
Simon.
AA. Good morning, chat. Good morning, Nick. Good morning, Horace. Good morning, everybody. It's cold. The mage of Surrey has driven the summer away.
Oh, I'm so pleased. The freezing spells work. The cold spells. Speaking of which, my daughter, known on the internet as AAA, has been convinced that she is an ice princess or whatever for the past 2 years, mainly down to that film Frozen. And I wonder if there are lots of little girls who think that they are ice wizards in some way.
Do you have to endure the torture of playing Frozen all the time? I hear a lot of parents talking about this. It's like when they used to lock, jihadis in containers and play Metallica at them very loud. Is it the same with Frozen?
I mean, to be fair, she goes through phases of different ones. She definitely had a Frozen phase, but recently it's been a movie called The Lorax, which is like a movie version of the Doctor. It's kind of dark, actually. A lot of kids' movies are dark now.
I hope so.
Yeah. Anyway, I just released my Why I Hate Madonna video, which I thought was a little bit frivolous, but I wanted to get it off my chest. And during the rant, I happened to call Madonna poor, right? Which a lot of commenters have picked up on. And I had to have a little giggle because obviously this is just the Welsh in me coming out, 2 vowels in poor, not just one paw. Flower. It's a flower and it's poor. All right. But speaking of AAA, I sometimes play top trumps with her. I've got several. She's got a Minions top trump, a Mr. Men top trump, and a Disney one. Right. She's quite good at it, to be fair, for a 5-year-old. She's kind of learned the tactics. But every once in a while I say, oh, I've got a poor card. And she has started copying. She's when we're playing, she's like, I got a poor card. And the missus just hates it. Because the missus is posh. She's, from London, and she's like, oh, we're not in Wales now, blah, 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 blah.
She'll get roasted at school. This is what happened to me in Australia when I moved out there with my Hartlepool accent and was like bath and grass and all of that. And the Australian children gracefully beat it out of me.
Simon, what is your accent now? What would you describe it as now?
Just a sort of flat RP kind of thing. I copied a friend who was from Kent and then just adapted it over the years.
You're so cosmopolitan. You're such a...
I know. Rootless cosmopolitan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was talking about accents yesterday, trying to place like the accent of Simon Marks from LBC.
Oh, yeah.
Lloyd Grossman, and also like Robin Leach.
Yeah.
Right, lifestyles of the rich and famous.
That's right.
And apparently that is known as a transatlantic accent. And it comes about where Brits go over to America and try to accentuate their British accent for effect. But they've also picked up like American twang.
Yeah.
So it comes out like that. And in Lloyd Grossman's case, it happened in reverse because Lloyd Grossman's American, but he kind of put on a British accent here. And he just lived here for so long that just became his voice. So, can you do it? Can you do a transatlantic accent?
Difficult because I think that James Mason is always held out to be the sort of one that is the classic. I think there was a sort of fetish for it in the 50s and 60s. It was
Cary Grant. Did he have that accent?
Yeah. I think it was seen as sort of aspirational and romantic in the way that when I were a lad, having continental biscuits was seen as a bit posh and sophisticated. I think having a sort of transatlantic accent was like that. It was kind of dashing and jet-setting and romantic.
Well, if you had Garibaldi's and nieces, you were a bit fancy.
Yeah. That was what the upper classes had.
What's your biscuit of choice, Nick?
Well, I did
segue.
like the Garibaldi back in the day. Then they got banned, didn't they? They were banned. Well, they just disappeared, especially the sort of proper brand. I can't remember what the exact brand was. Then they seemed to come back and sort of, Tesco's own brand ones, but they definitely disappeared. We had them a lot growing up. So that was a sort of an aristocrat of biscuits, really. I don't know if it's my absolute favorite.
Sounds like he should have been like a mid-90s Premiership striker. Garibaldi now!
Probably played Newcastle and Keegan's team. He's bought too many strikers because they had cool names, and now he's got no defenders. We brought it back to football immediately. Yeah, I think Garibaldi's a strong choice. That's all that's going. I used to quite like rich tea because it was my granddad's biscuit. It was the biscuit of the working class, and it was like my granddad. It was sort of, he was working class, and he read the Daily Mirror, and he said called it my paper. Have you seen my paper today, Nicky? And it was very important to him, and he always had rich tea, so that seemed to be a thing as well.
Custard cream's getting a lot of love in the chat.
Obviously, you got your bourbon, your custard cream, you got your digestive, you got your hobnob for some people. I mean, that's a very chocolatey and wheaty, isn't it? It's quite a sort of filling, probably too much for many.
Hey, were you going to ask me what my favourite?
What's your favourite biscuit? What's your favourite biscuit?
Well, yeah, you've named a lot of good ones. Garibaldi's are nice. Bourbons can be nice. Obviously, dark chocolate digestives. There's a shout for them. Put them in the fridge first, maybe. Weird, but I once had an operation, and when I came to, like if you have general anaesthetic, you can't eat for however long before, like nearly a day before. So you're starving when you wake up. And anaesthetic, I don't know, it just has funny effects on you as well. Like I think I was on codeine as well, and it just makes things taste nice. And someone gave me a little packet of custard creams, of like 3 of them, and it was the nicest thing I've ever eaten. and then I demanded more and more. I was in hospital; they just kept bringing me more custard creams, and they were the nicest.
I'm picturing you like Alex Boy from Clockwork Orange, sitting. When he just opens his mouth,
opens his gob, yeah.
Opening your mouth, being fed custard creams in hospital.
You know what? I had to do the whole question from memory because obviously after 40, you don't just sit around eating biscuits. I mean, you instantly put on a stone and die if you eat a single biscuit.
I went to my Blaze. I went to the gym again this morning. Yesterday it was a petite Asian woman shouting at me to do burpees. This morning it was a athletic black guy. It's just like,
that's always better.
Motivator.
It's more credible, yeah. It makes motivator.
It just feels like general humiliation, And there are like young girls in that class, genuinely like lifting more, just more agile than I am. But my back isn't it. I hate it. I might just go in and say like, look, I'll do everything else, but can I just do something else when you tell everybody to do burpees? Because
oh yeah, burpees are the worst, especially after a certain age. You get because I'm actually not bad at weights. I can my bench press is like respectable, but when you to try and get down to the floor and up again, that's the hard. When you're like past 40, the hardest bit is in between the exercise. The guy's like, right, we're gonna do squats, we're gonna do this, we're gonna do that. And it's like getting down to do the thing and up again is the hardest. Not any.
Yeah, and they always want you to do like the burpee thing and then jump up.
Yeah.
Always go in from down to up all the time. That's the bit I don't want to do, Nick.
There's quite a nice variation where you do a push-up on those, especially on those bars are quite good. You do the push-up and then you kind of sort of jump, sort of stand up in between each push-up. It's not quite a burpee. It's none of that jumping and clapping and stuff. That's quite a nice one. That's still, reasonable.
When you're at the gym, I always like walking past where there's a room full of people doing those cycle classes, and there's just someone screaming at them. Come on, you horrible lot! Come on! Just sounds like mayhem in there. It's funny.
There's no humiliation in the burpees though, because my brother was doing it with his kid, who was like 8 or something, and finding that the kid was much better at it just because of like low body weight and agility. So there's no shame in not being able to do it. It doesn't, because it's not about strength, right? If you were getting out benched by a girl, you'd be ashamed.
No, yeah, yes, it's agility, of which I have none. You know, like some people can do the splits and things like that.
Yeah,
I reckon I
Witchcraft.
can't. I reckon I can't get more than like 90 degree angle on my legs. I just don't go that much, you know.
Same.
Prince was known for doing the splits all the time, but even he, when he got to like in his 40s, he didn't do the splits anymore. It's just ridiculous. There's no way.
He wouldn't have noticed with all the fentanyl he was on.
I couldn't do it when I was like 14, let alone 40.
Prince, by the way, about 100 times better than Madonna in every single way. I was actually discovering that Prince wrote songs that I didn't even know. You know, Manic Monday by the Bangles. That was written by Prince. He wrote,
and there's a really big hit that he did. You know,
Nothing Compared to You with Sinead O'Connor. There's a few. There's about 5 or 6 massive hits that secretly were written by Prince. Guy was a genius.
He was a real talent. I saw him live. He was over 50 by then, but he was still. His stage presence was like nobody else. He was like Freddie Mercury level. Yeah, he was brilliant.
Do you know what? I broadly agree with your Madonna take, and obviously Kate Bush is in a completely different league. But I mean, La Isla Bonita was good. Like a Prayer is good. Dear Jessie was pretty good. She had some decent ones.
You don't think I've considered that? You don't think I've considered when I come out with this, right? I've just come out with this without listening to her major hits.
No, I'm making the case that there were some decent songs.
Absolute shite.
Of course, you've considered it.
I attribute very little about her success to her talent, right? But she was given some good songs to perform. Yeah, like the writing teams handed some good ones over to her. A lot, actually. Yeah,
she's no Bush, but she's just got a couple of decent ones.
If you made an 80s playlist, right, where you're sticking in all the great big, you know, Aha and you know, whatever, like all the big 80s songs, right? 99 Red Balloons, stick them all in. Small Town Boy.
Tell It to My Heart by Taylor Dane.
You know, Blue Monday. All the big 80s songs. I guarantee you'd come up with 50 songs before you'd be sticking any Madonna in there.
There is something in that. You think about some of her biggest hits, Vogue, not that great. Yeah, there is something in that. And then later, she's like in that weird yoga fitness phase where it's all about like having biceps and doing weird dance tunes. Yeah, there's definitely something in that.
Just shite. Sorry, everybody. All right. Shall we get going here? There's one little slop topic I wanted to mention before we start today, which is that some people have been asking me like my opinion on the flag debate. I don't know what it is, and I've been seeing like there's that Islander magazine. The editor of that, Rory, on his Twitter account has been he's been engaged in some like, massive flag debate, and Carl's on one side and Rory's on, and I don't understand it. What they all argue? What's the flag debate? I don't get it. Like, is it
about whether it's organic or whether it's contrived?
What?
It's because these lads are putting up flags across the country in a sign of rebellion, and then people are saying, "Is this good or bad? What does it mean?" And then people are also saying, "Do we like the St. George's Cross or do we like the Union Jack?"
Okay, so explain. I've missed this entire story. Why are people putting flags up?
They're putting up flags in a rebellion against the prevailing regime, particularly the migrant hotels and so on. And they were taken down in one instance by the council and by some foreigners from the council. And I compared at that point the St. George's Cross to the Confederate flag. I think it was a good insight because it's seen as this arcane, quasi-racist, sort of irrelevant flag. You're like, why are you putting that up? And I realized that's how it was seen. That was my insight. But in general, yeah, they're putting up flags as a rebellion. It's like the flag raising movement. And I think you shared that one where they put the flag in the pothole. They said finally the potholes will get solved.
Yeah, but that's because I want the potholes fixed, Nick. I was thinking one step of a chess move, you know.
Well, that's what the flag's about. It's just a spontaneous, organic, the kind of thing you would say that doesn't exist and write several books on how it doesn't exist. But it's a spontaneous, organic, bottom-up, grassroots movement that's inherently threatening to your ideology.
Yeah. And Rory was saying that has the same energy of Nigel Farage but banging the pots during COVID. That was the tweet that he said.
I
disagree.
Rory's not connected with the people who are in the groups who are doing it. I've seen evidence that it's very much organic.
If you look at his other tweets, he just puts up loads of provocative stuff and then just puts sorry at the end of it. Like it's just like a provocative style on purpose. You know?
I love Roy, but it's very different because that was high status, wasn't it? To bang pots, that was literally the normie current thing. This is taken down by councils, hated by the system. So I don't think it can be. Maybe it could end up being co-opted, but for now, I think it's a genuine thing.
For followers of cultural theory, it's a bit of a Guy Debord détournement, where you're using something which was formerly reviled and giving it a new interpretation.
I remember Guy Debord, the spectacle and the situationist and all that.
I got that book here. It's a great book.
Yeah.
Very, very Adam Curtis as a book, I would say.
That's what we're all about.
Woke right loves Guy Debord, says James.
Yeah. Jesus Christ.
See, I don't just know about 90s football. I knew what you were on about.
Speaking of fake reality, I've got to take issue with AA. Why aren't you a Marlovian? Yeah, what's all this fake spear that you're pushing? You know, why didn't he write the plays after he'd been stabbed in the eyeball and died in 1593?
It's very annoying.
I was shocked by that.
Why don't they pick someone who didn't die early or midway through Shakespeare's career? They should pick someone who was alive during Shakespeare's career. That's my if they're going to do it, they need to do that, and then they need to explain why all the people who mention Shakespeare took part in this massive conspiracy to make up an author. That's the next bit that they never do.
I saw some mad stuff on that post, like he was illiterate and he never existed. The people who know most about Shakespeare that I know are AA and Andrew Doyle. And Andrew Doyle says it's nonsense as well. So
don't talk to AA. He's just a Stratfordian.
Mental.
Yeah, I can see. There's Edward de Vere fans in the chat there. Welcome.
he died. He died in 1603 or something.
Yeah,
right in the middle of which means that not only did he secretly write all of Shakespeare's plays and then create a conspiracy and make a front man, but he was a clairvoyant who was able to predict the gunpowder plot of 1605 after he died, and then make references to it in his plays.
Yeah.
Was he was definitely real, but was he gay though? I just want to check before I start reading any of these plays.
Was Shakespeare gay?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, he did write the sonnets to a man, which does give one pause. You know, that poem, shall I compare thee to a summer's day? Thou art lovely and more temperate. That is written to a young man. And if you read the sonnets, what happens is, he's writing love poems to this young man, which do get a bit fruity. At one point, he kind of complains. He was like, why won't you build, basically the gist of what he's saying, although he says it much more poetically than this. The gist of what he's saying is like, why weren't you born with a vagina so that we could shag? Basically, it's like the kind of clincher.
So not gay.
But then what happens during the sonnet sequence is that a rival poet turns up, and the speaker of Shakespeare's sonnets immediately gives up and says, "Oh, there's this new poet, and you're going to go off with him, aren't you?" Oh, so
he's not gay, but he's a little bit kind of easily discouraged.
So that he immediately gets cucked and depressed that there's this new rival poet in town, and then they kind of go weird because a dark lady turns up and he starts shagging her instead. Although he's usually quite mean about her.
You could make the case, which Heffer makes in Powell's biography, that actually he wasn't gay. Powell had like these one or two idealized relationships with men who were soldiers who he saw as a kind of heroic ideal, but there was nothing gay went on. So that can happen.
So the argument that it's not gay, even though it sounds very gay, is that in the Elizabethan period they were obsessed with the classical period. They were neoclassical, and they had Aristotle's ideal friendship. Like the highest level of love that you can get is between two men, because men are just about better than women, right? And so a love between a man and a woman can't be a love between equals. Okay, so to have true love It has to be love between two equals as friends. Obviously, no actual hanky panky. Okay, so that's how it's justified. The trouble is that because we are degenerate moderns, who grew up listening to likes of Madonna, Nick, and the Culture Club and so on, it's basically like impossible for us to come across this stuff and not think like it's pretty gay, though, isn't it?
Right.
So and then there are some plays which have kind of gay overtones, like for example, in The Merchant of Venice, Antonio, the merchant, like really loves, what's his name? Sebastian, I think is the name of the other character. Is it Sebastian? I always struggle with the names of characters, but like he acts out of like real love for his friend, takes on all these debt, like the debts that he owes Shylock.
Oh, Antonio and Bassanio, you mean?
Bassanio,
Yeah.
not Sebastian. Bassanio. He takes on Bassanio's debts, and he does it out of love. And it's just like, why does he do that? And so obviously, a lot of people were like, "Yeah, it's because he's gay." Right now, it could be that he's just living up to this Platonic, Aristotelian, Greek ideal of friendship or something, right? And he's like a really good Christian or something like that. But like, you can see why people say, "Well, yeah, this bit is pretty gay." The same thing happens in what's the one where they get shipwrecked? Is it Twelfth Night?
Twelfth Night.
That's Sebastian, isn't it?
Yeah,
remember
that's
Sebastian.
right.
Sebastian's got a mate too, who's also called Antonio. Is that right? I think it's Antonio, and that Antonio is also like really loves Sebastian and does loads of stuff for him, basically for no reason. Yeah. So yeah.
I think if Mr. D would hear, he'd talk about the idea that I think in the Elizabethan period there wasn't quite such a rigid bifurcation between heterosexual and homosexual. And
then and of course, if you did Foundations of Shakespeare, buy it now, you'd learn about all of this. In As You Like It, there is the heroine is called Rosalind, and the kind of romantic hero is called Orlando. But Rosalind dresses up as a character called Ganymede, who's a boy. And then as Ganymede, and Orlando really loves Rosalind, fancies her, and Ganymede and Rosalind actually likes Orlando. So Rosalind dressed as Ganymede, basically like tries to coach Orlando into how to woo Rosalind. Can you see the setup here? Right. So at one point, Orlando starts writing poems and putting them on trees, but they're like terrible poems. So basically, like she's coaching him on how to be like a better, like a more, I don't know, like her ideal man or something like this. But she's dressed as a boy, and there's a scene where they're kind of getting to know each other, but she's still dressed as a boy, and they kind of like go to kiss, and it's all pretty like,
yeah.
I mean, think of the setup, Nick. Right? You really like some girl.
I've seen it live. But go on.
You really like a girl. I'm like Nick, right? If you really want to get into a pants, here's what you should do. I'll pretend to be her, and then in that scenario, me and you end up kissing. Basically, that would be gay, wouldn't it?
Very gay.
And so that happens in As You Like It. And a very similar sort of thing happens in Twelfth Night, when Viola dresses up as Cesario, and Orsino, the Duke, he kind of falls in love with Viola while she's still dressed as Cesario. And then at the end of the play, they're like, hey, I'm a girl after all.
Hey, but of course, some of that, and obviously you know this, but some of that is just comedic devices, you know, Midsummer Night's Dream. Like, they're all switching, and it's always meant to be like funny. And that even takes it further with, of course, Bottom and Me Thought I Was Enamored of an Ass and all that. So,
yeah, but
you know, it's a kind of a convention.
In Twelfth Night, after Viola reveals that she's not Cesario, but is actually Viola, yay, let's get married. I'm a girl after all. Orsino's still like, yeah, Cesario, come here, boy, I love you, type thing. so it's kind of weird. Like he still calls her boy and Cesario. So it's kind of like, so obviously, if you're a gay critic, there's quite a lot of material to work with.
On that note, can I just say one thing is highly relevant because you mentioned As You Like It, which I saw once. It was very good. I've also seen Leah live with Tom Courtney. Anyway, the other day there was a clip. I don't know if you saw it. Candace Owens didn't know where All the World's a Stage was from, and she goes, "I've always wondered. Oh, where's that from? Oh, it's Shakespearean." And it was just like some of these cringe. No, you can't know everything, but that was just a cringe moment of
Well,
stupidity.
in Candice's case, there are. We can't go. Okay, I'm not. Yeah, I can understand. Maybe. Shall we get into? But buy a course, ladies and gentlemen. Maybe by foundation of Shakespeare. After we talked about Shakespeare for so long, but anything else you guys want to promote before we get going, Nick?
Well, I want to say nothing will come of nothing. So yes, I will promote my YouTube, which is Nick Dixon. And we just had our David Stark interview, which I was banging on about. That's hit 240k views. We've got a new interview up there as well. Later on, I'm doing a live stream on there today. I'm going to do my podcast as a live stream instead. So check that out if you like that kind of thing. NickDixon.net for more extra stuff. NJ Dixon on Twitter. Thank you very much.
Horace?
Nothing of my own new to promote, but I'll give a shout out to it's Chris Gard who did the theme tune for The Deepest Law, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. Yes.
Deepest Law. He and Harry have done a tune, and I think it's pretty good. They can both. I mean, Harry's really good on guitar, and Chris is a really good singer, so it's good. I can't remember which channel it's on, but
it's on Chris Gard's channel. Yeah.
There we go.
And Simon. Yes.
Join us again, Nick and myself, on Saturday night. We will probably be excavating the thoughts of Dominic Cummings or similar again.
Yes. Oh, yeah, we did another one, didn't we, on Saturday? Another Cummings, just autistically going through the Cummings interviews. People like it. And we did, of course, the other one got taken down, so we had to return to safer territory.
Great. All right. Well, where were we with hypernormalization? We just got past the Gaddafi bit, and now we're into Jane Fonda bit. Is that right?
The Truth is Out There is the name of this chapter. It's divided into a number of chapters, this film, and this one is going to start about talking about UFOs.
Do you know we're not even half the way through hypernormalization? No. It's going to take us forever. All right, let's carry on.
Wow, look at that. What the heck is that? Oh my God, look at that. Holy crap. It's just moving really slowly. Wow.
Oh. Come here. What is it doing?
What the heck? Guys, it's a freaking
Whoa! Oh my gosh! What is happening? What is going on? Oh my gosh, Tom! Holy shit.
Oh my god, guys!
Guys, is that a freaking UFO? Wait, can you get a good video? Good.
What is it?
What the hell?
In the 1980s, more and more people in the United States reported seeing unexplained objects and lights in the sky. At the same time, investigators who believed in UFOs revealed that they had discovered top-secret government documents that stated that alien craft had visited Earth. The documents had been hidden for 20 years, and they seemed to prove that there had been a giant cover-up. But actually, the reality was even stranger. The American government might have been making it all up, that they had created a fake conspiracy to deliberately mislead the population. The lights that people imagined were UFOs may in reality have been new high-technology weapons that the US government were testing.
Pause.
I knew it. I knew it. I had money on Simon today. I didn't say it. I was like, everybody in the chat is thinking Horace. It's going to be Simon for the first pause of the day. And it was.
Nothing if not predictable.
Go on, Simon.
For plain nerds, that's a Lockheed F-117 Nighthawk. It was a stealth attack aircraft that was in service through the 80s to 1990. And you got an interesting shot there of it being filmed under night vision infrared, being refueled in midair. The thing about UFOs here is it goes all the way back to essentially the late 1940s, early 50s, where you had obviously the well-known phenomenon of UFO hysteria in the US, and the US Air Force devised a number of projects to monitor this. Famously, there was Project Sign, which started in 1947. And this was really just to kind of log and monitor sightings that were happening. There were a few sightings that came from US Air Force test pilots of odd phenomena. Within a year or two, though, they changed to a kind of counter-signaling project called Project Grudge. And this was really to try and minimize the plausibility of the idea of UFOs. This then changed in 1952 to what was called Project Blue Book, which ran for quite a long time until the late 60s. There was a congressional committee called the Condon Committee that basically wanted to look into all of this stuff and pass the sort of threat assessment, the possibility of Soviet, incursions by technology, but mainly to sort of collect the reports and explain them away in a similar fashion. More or less, it came to the conclusion that UFO sightings were just a result of natural phenomena, and the whole thing obviously was an interesting form of kind of mass hysteria that you had running in this period. And this then begins to emerge again, as he says here. It's really in the late 70s, about 1979. This incident that's gonna come up is being described, but it was around the time that things like the stealth technology that you see here were actually being developed, and the case here of this chap Benovitz that he's going to talk about is kind of someone who was stumbling on the early emergence of that.
You know what Curtis said about the intelligence services mixing in UFO shit to distract people.
Yeah,
this has always been something that has irritated me about a lot of American voices on the right. Alex Jones would be an obvious one, but even like we mentioned, Candace Owens, and even Tucker Carlson does it. It's really annoying. Like just stick to like you don't need to throw in the UFO episode. You know what I mean? Why do they do that? I mean, Nick at GB News, did they ever say, yeah, you have to discuss UFOs today?
No, they did say you can't criticize Candace, which was weird. But maybe I shouldn't even talk about that. But I get lose my money.
Right, okay.
Yeah, I thought that was really weird. But they didn't say talk about UFOs or don't talk about them. I personally, having watched the Bob Lazar documentary, was so convinced by them. I was like, yeah, they're definitely real. He definitely worked on alien craft. Weirdly, it didn't change my life though. I was like, now what? So in a way, you're right, because what's the utility of it? Because I'm like, okay, aliens are definitely real. He worked on them, but then I was like, it didn't change anything. So
well, that's exactly the phenomenon that they talk about. There's Curtis is going to show some clips with this interview with this Air Force investigations officer called Paul Doty, talking about the Benovitz case, and it comes from a really interesting film which I'll link later on called Mirage Men, which was put out in 2013. And essentially, it is talking about the idea the US military was sort of fabricating UFO folklore to deflect attention from the classified projects that people like Benovitz would be kind of inadvertently stumbling on. And it's kind of very similar in a way to when we did Bitter Lake, and there was that character Jack Edema who was sort of bombing around Afghanistan looking for bin Laden and presenting himself as a sort of a deep, black ops guy that the Pentagon had sanctioned to go and take out Osama. And the way that story turned out was Edema was a complete fantasist. But what would happen is he was actually in contact with the Pentagon, and they were basically trying to humor him to make him go away. And a lot of the UFO stuff that came out of this era was essentially that the investigative agencies were keen to keep people away from the bases, and they were also keen to feed the idea that these things were UFOs. They were real. Go off and look for them. And the idea was, as he says, Dottie says, they were trying to inoculate people against really doing anything more after that, because as you say, you learn about it and then you sort of come to a thought terminating cliche, and it sort of doesn't go any further. They were happy to give people, the magic information or faked magic information, and then they would send themselves into kind of spirals, as you will see with this case.
The government had developed the weapons because they, in turn, imagined that the Soviet Union was far stronger than it was, and still wanted to conquer the world. The government wanted to keep the weapons secret, but they couldn't always hide their appearance in the skies. So it is alleged that they chose a number of people to use to spread the rumour that these were really alien visitations. One of those chosen was called Paul Benovitz, who lived outside a giant airbase in New Mexico and had noticed strange things going on.
Years later, I sat down with Paul at dinner and told Paul exactly that everything we did was a sanctioned counterintelligence operation to convince him that what he was seeing was UFOs, and that what we didn't want him to know was that he tapped into something on the base, and we didn't want him to ever disclose that. We kind of planted the seed in Paul that what he was seeing and what he was hearing and what he was collecting was, in fact, probably maybe UFOs.
Benovitz and others chosen by the agency were, it is alleged, given a series of forged documents. Many of them were top-secret memos by the military describing sightings of unidentified aerial vehicles. The documents spread like wildfire, and they formed the basis for the wave of belief in UFOs that would spread through America in the 1990s.
Pause. What the fuck? Just to add a bit more there. So Benovitz was a guy who lived near Kirtland Air Force Base in New Mexico, and he had a company that dealt in equipment for measuring humidity. And what he was doing is he was gathering emissions data from the base, and this is what sort of alerted the Air Force investigation people to say, what's he doing? What's he doing? We've got classified projects running over here. And he actually went to the base and gave a presentation to the people, the officers, and said, can you give me a grant to conduct more research into the UFOs? And of course, they know perfectly well there's nothing going on. But they took it to the extent where this guy Dottie was assigned to him. And they would fly him up into the mountains around the base to pre-prepared areas where they had kind of planted props to suggest alien activity, like the sort of arrangements of lights hidden under the ground, and they would sort of fly over with a helicopter, and they'd deploy little structures that were sort of half buried to give the impression that there was a kind of an alien landing site there, and they really actually convinced him that there was going to be an alien invasion as such. And that little clip you saw of Dottie talking about when he met Benovitz, this is after years. This is the end of a long period from 79 into about 88. And he sat down and said, look, Mr. Benovitz, this was just a counter-intel operation. And Benovitz apparently reacts, as you can, if you look at Mirage Men, Benovitz says, it's okay, Rick, you don't need to lie to me. I know they were UFOs. And eventually he became clinically paranoid, sort of had to be checked into a mental institution.
If you're Benovitz there, though, why would you believe that? I mean, you would think that's just the people just lying to cover themselves, wouldn't you? I mean, I know you can't prove a negative, but if you already think these are the people doing it, or these are the people covering it up, I suppose, then you're just I can see why you didn't believe them.
Well,
but obviously,
why are counterintelligence doing that though?
The idea was purpose. The idea was to deflect him from investigating, or the main concern was because of stealth tech coming in the late 70s, that there was a real possibility of Soviet agents on the ground actually hovering around the sites in order to. I mean, they had to look at this guy as a possible espionage case. He was actually an ex Air Force flyer, and he lived very close to the base, and he would fly around the area, sort of looking at what was going on. and really it was just a sort of obsessional persistence that led to them having to kind of try and keep up with him and amp up the disinformation to try and just deflect his attention.
That is so dark.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
so dark.
Yeah, and it's Curtis says saying there, you know, there was technology that they were developing because they were still paying close attention to the Soviet Union. If you remember in The Power of Nightmares, there was the CIA Team B, who essentially they were pursuing counter-Soviet defensive thinking on the basis that there wasn't any evidence of the Soviets having amazing technology. So they said, well, if we can't detect it, it must be that good that we really need to look further into it. So, you know, that's it's kind of also like when Curtis says, or they mention about him being chosen, Benovitz was kind of chosen for this. It's very like the LSD experiments that I think all the way back in the Century of the Self, MK Ultra, where they were giving out LSD. They were giving people the dangerous secret knowledge. This was part of what kickstarted the counterculture.
Do you think?
Yeah.
I've just had a terrible thought. Do you think that intelligence services have done this to James Lindsay? that they're just making the man in like that. You know, that there's a psyop specifically on James Lindsay to make him go insane.
This is my end cap. You know, think about this in the context of today's government acting against its citizenry, using demoralization exercises where people go into these sort of vortex of deflecting paranoia. Then they fuel it themselves, you know, and that completely neutralizes them as threats or political.
Somebody accused me of that this week. They said, "Oh, it's clear that AA is a demoralization agent due to my stance that Ofcom have it in their rights to."
But that's
to have a go at 4chan.
That's the whole right, isn't it? Just people calling each other feds. That means you're about to go on Tucker Carlson. You'll get called a fed. You know, Fuentes calls Carlson a fed. Carlson calls Fuentes a fed. Candace backs it up. You get called. Go on.
I mean, in my imagination, what a Fed would be doing would not be because this guy now, I didn't ban him. So today now he commented on the Madonna video. Yeah, clear distraction techniques. You know, that's like a Fed would not defend Keir Starmer's decision to go after Ofcom, to go after 4chan, and then make a random video about why he hates Madonna. What a Fed would actually be doing would be encouraging people to like go out and put up flags, probably.
But this
you know what I mean? You know,
this is the problem. People are tending not to be very selective with how. I mean, you know, people overuse terms like, you know, controlled opposition and so on, and everyone's a Fed and so on, and they kind of, you know, counterintelligence is relying on people's desire to have a sort of a competitive social response, you know, to kind of be more knowing than the next person, you know, and you know, we all know the kinds of people, you know, where they'll sort of, well, you haven't gone as far down the rabbit hole, have you? And I can tell you there's all sorts of dark stuff, and they can allude to things which, you know, they know and you don't.
They're the most tiresome people. Sorry, go on, Nick.
Yeah, no, I was going to agree, but I was going to say my theory is that almost no one is a Fed. Now, I do admit the Tucker Carlson dad in CIA thing is a bit weird. And when he said, I didn't even know until Nick said that. I didn't even know. And like, you can see he obviously did know. But Tucker's so weird. He can say things in the moment that he believes in that moment, but actually aren't true. He's sort of radically subjective, and he just gets carried away in the moment, a bit like Trump. And that's why people say, oh, they lie, but they just sort of don't even see it as lying. That's my theory with Tucker Carlson. But the Fed thing, my theory is just having done a bit of media and stuff, my theory is that people outside of it overestimate how many people want to dedicate their lives to being a Fed. It's an incredibly weird life, and you're basically just doing it for money, and you live a weird double life, like being a spy or something. How many people actually want to be a spy? There's not many, and it's a horrible life. Whereas someone like Fuentes or anyone who's dedicated their life to it, and, you know, banned from flying, banned from this and that, bank account frozen, it's a quite edgy life. And even if you've had any brushes with hope not hate hit pieces, and, you know, you can't say what you do to normal people and all this kind of thing, you know, it's not a very pleasant way to live. Even like a GB News producer went for a haircut and they didn't finish his haircut when he said he worked at GB News, which is obviously the most mild station. So when you're in this kind of line of work, there's a lot of kind of tricky things that go along with it. Most people don't want to do it. And the idea that you do it all just to be a Fed, I think it must be a tiny percentage of the population that would have that mindset. Most people, in my perhaps naive opinion, just do believe in it. But hey, maybe I'm a fed. I don't know.
Simon, I wanted to pick up on what you said about the role of, well, I guess it was the CIA, right, in starting, in whether advertently or not, like starting the counterculture by seeding LSD and probably influencing people like Timothy Leary. I don't know, but
not so much him, it seems, that from looking at last week. I think he was kind of sort of independent of them, but this is part of, you know, what, well, they're not going to disrupt a project like that, which has its own value.
Right.
Started by
happy to usher people in that direction, perhaps.
Yeah.
And I've read about that. It does seem to be part of, like, you know, a completely admitted, maybe not by the CIA themselves, but admitted part of the CIA history that they did do that. They experimented with LSD. They gave it to people who didn't want it, and all sorts of stuff.
Yeah.
I would just say, like, that is probably an example. I mean, the CIA notoriously operates kind of off the leash, like just does things that are illegal, and they just somehow get away with them.
Yeah.
I guess because presidents are frightened of them or something. I'm not sure. But I think, like, that is just one example of probably there's many where civil servants, probably people in the military as well, sometimes just do things. They just start up their own projects. They just work to their own purposes, or they misunderstand what the people at the apex want, or they hate the people at the apex and are trying to just do their own thing. You just get these rogue elements in states as well. I can't remember why I was mentioning that, but I do think that is probably a factor in, you know, when it's confusing. Sometimes you look at why are they doing, like AA was saying, like, this is so dark, like that, the suggestion, the implication of what you said, like that. Sometimes things like that, just bizarre actions of the state, are explained by just minor factions who are just off the project.
There's probably also generational elements as well. I mean, with things like the CIA, which was formed in 1947, it came out of a World War II organization called the OSS, which sort of had an even slightly more aggressive outlook on, you know, information warfare, propaganda, and a sense of the kind of guys coming out of that where, you know, they were kind of like cigar stuck in one side of their mouth and sort of, you know, saying, you know, let's take a massive risk here. There was a culture of after
nothing wrong with cigars, mind. Carry on.
after Nuremberg, the Nuremberg Code about, you know, the consent of the medical subject, this was something where there was a kind of exception within the American state to having to follow that kind of medical ethical procedure, and the intelligence services took it as a sort of carte blanche that they could just, you know, go out and do these things. As you say, they would spike people's drinks with LSD. You know, you ended up having people jumping out of skyscrapers. You know, you ended up having blackmail material gathered through brothels that were set up. San Francisco was a particular one where, you know, they would just spike people's drinks and just observe them as well. And the agents would, you know, they started off in a very basic way with the agents just giving each other LSD and just observing how they went, because they had this idea that the mind was like a sort of tape recorder, an automatic thing, and if you could disrupt it sufficiently, like Dr. Ewan Cameron, the Allen Memorial, we saw the psychic driving experiments. If you could do that, you could get towards generating sort of automatic obedience, and these are the sorts of things they were thinking the Soviets were dealing with, you know, because when they were seeing people who'd been captured, like Gary Powers, the U-2 pilot, and when he, you know, gone on trial, and other pilots who'd been captured, they all kind of had this blank sort of look as if, you know, they'd been brainwashed, and the US were sort of fascinated by this idea of breaking people down in this kind of way.
Yeah, I mean, this recalls us, obviously, you were mentioning like the episode of The Living Dead, I think it was, and that is one of the best episodes Curtis ever did, I think, the one about Ewan Cameron. Absolutely horrible. And it's like that guy is working for the state. He himself is quite an eccentric, bizarre person, maybe, but like this, you can get units of this or that facility that come under the spell of a certain intellectual. That's another thing, right? Just that, like, they just become enamored of them. They just think they're a genius or whatever. You see, like, this is in loads of films and all sorts of stuff.
I think they just had more latitude to do this sort of stuff than I mean, obviously in the UK we have, you know, the Behavioural Insights Unit. You know, we have Raikou. You know, we have these kind of counter intel operations. You know, they don't look as sinister as the US ones, but, you know, you can get lost in the US system probably a bit easier.
What I think may happen sometimes, though, is that rather than a specific person being a quote unquote fed, the intelligence services decide to use a person or, you know, pick something for a specific purpose. Pretty good example is David Hasselhoff, right? Do you remember that, right? David Hasselhoff had this song called Freedom. It was like a massive hit in Germany, and Like he played on the Berlin Wall, and we're always told David Hasselhoff.
The Berlin Wall fell down because he rocked it so hard.
Yeah, I mean, he just brought down, through the power of American rock and roll, brought down the Berlin Wall, massive star in Germany. Now, the CIA actually did reveal that there was a significant operation to make David Hasselhoff a star in Germany.
Yeah.
And he was kind of aware of it. But David Hasselhoff is not a Fed. You know what I mean? Like, he was never actually working, quote unquote, working for the CIA.
He's a mere puppet of Feds.
But they had a vested interest in that being a thing in Germany at that time.
What was Baywatch all about? What was the psyop there?
Big boobs.
Yeah, classic.
I mean, this is the thing AA's been talking about recently. You know, the Francis Stoner Saunders book about the Congress for Cultural Freedom, culture pushing, essentially. I mean, it's notable that guy being interviewed about Benovitz, Paul Doty, he was a consultant for the X-Files.
Interesting. Was he really?
So, yeah. And if you have a look at this Mirage Man documentary, it is quite good, actually. And it's, again, I'm not going to take a position on whether UFOs are real or not or anything like that. What I'm talking about is that it's a phenomenon that can be taken advantage of as a cultural concept to direct people's brains in a certain direction, which may have utility in terms of the broader culture war.
So do you think like X-Files was pushed as an example? Because there was also the Outer Limits. Mm-hmm. That was a thing in that same period.
Yeah.
That was originally from the 50s, by the way.
Mm-hmm. They brought it back, didn't they? They brought it back. Did they bring back Twilight Zone as well? I can't remember.
I
think so.
Yeah. I think Mark Hamill did a Twilight Zone.
Do you think Robbie Williams is in on it? Because he's one of the biggest sort of UFO exponents, isn't he? Or he's very interested in it. He's very interested in UFOs. He goes to used to go to the conventions and everything.
Does he?
Yeah.
Oh, right.
Did he at some point stop going because he realised it was silly? The X-Files. I used to watch that most every week, pretty much when that was big in the mid-90s. And I don't know if I ever watched it all the way to the end, and I didn't watch the movie and stuff. But it was always unresolved. Like, who is right, Mulder or Scully? Like, one of them's the skeptic.
I think it was always implied that Mulder was right.
So there were aliens.
Doesn't Scully become a bit of a believer towards the end?
Scully's a normie, going, no, they're not doing this. They're not bringing in migrants or whatever. And that's if it was the red pill version. And Mulder's like, yeah, it's all real. Yeah, Mulder's, it's implied he's right.
Towards the end, doesn't Scully become a bit less skeptical? Like,
I think so. I stopped watching it as well.
Because they bring in T-1000 actor, don't they? The actor who played T-1000 of Terminator 2 comes in. And by that point, Scully is more like red pilled.
It's been many years. I had the VHS box sets. It was many years, but I always thought they started out really interesting with a different character each week. Like the guy that could slide on the floors and stuff. But then it just became the ongoing dense alien conspiracy with the smoking man, and it got less interesting, probably, as I recall. But I could be wrong.
I think when the movie came out, someone I know watched it and said, "Yeah, you do see aliens in it," so it kind of confirms that it was a cover up all along. But all I meant to raise about that was I think with the X-Files, you can that can still be useful, because it's like, I don't know, it just lures in the dumber people. A bit like letting Candace talk about this and whatever. It's like, this is just wasting everyone's time, so it's fine.
Exactly. It's people with a very low agitation threshold.
Sorry to bring things down to the level of 90s football again, but for the benefit of Nick, right? Whenever I'd watch X-Files, I couldn't help but think that
Dan Petrescu.
Yeah. Fox Mulder was literally just Dan Petrescu. This exact same man. Anyway, let's go.
Great segue.
We'll carry on.
But this was the thing. Like I said, there was the 50s projects where the US was kind of trying to take a scientific rationalist position. Okay, these people are reporting these phenomena. We're going to log these things. And we're going to think about them. We're going to try and explain them. And they found it was just using up a lot of energy. So by this time, into the 90s, they've decided, you know what we're going to do with this UFO stuff? We, the Air Force, we've had enough of trying to counter all these stories. We're actually just going to transfer the concept of UFOs towards entertainment. And that's why you have the shift towards things like the X-Files. And we're just going to feed the madness. Let it go. It's no longer our problem now. It's a cultural phenomenon.
Yeah, some of that seems to work. It actually neutralizes it.
And you see it in the interview with Benovitz when he says to Dottie, look, you can't tell me it's not. I know it's UFOs. He's reached that stage that Yuri Bezmenov talks about in the demoralization cycle, where even if you give them the evidence of what's going on, they won't believe it anymore.
See, I do think it's quite useful though, because it's like Alex Jones in the tin, like the meme of Alex Jones in the tin foil hat. It does basically give a nice blanket of crazy. So I mean, I always remember there was that thing leftists used to share of the pyramid of like conspiracy and things. But then you notice that they throw in a few things like, hold on a second, that's not like, that's near the top, and that's probably quite true. And they just mix it, it's all in together. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like mutually. It's like if they want to stuff a few genuine lies in there, there's perfect cover basically.
And then at the bottom of the image, you notice there's a little ADL symbol.
Anyway, let's carry on.
This just this clip here, that sort of bubble visual effect in the sky there, that was actually, it was the trail of an Atlas V rocket that was being launched from Cape Canaveral. And it was they explained it away. It was some kind of effect of the smoke trail being hit by the sun, because this was about 6 a.m. and the sun was coming up. So it created this sort of weird sort of elliptical corona.
Yeah, nigga, that's crazy, bro. Is that space?
And it also fueled the wider growing belief that governments lied to you, that conspiracies were real. What the Reagan administration were doing, both with Colonel Gaddafi and with the UFOs, was a blurring of fact and fiction. But it was part of an even broader program. The president's advisors had given it a name. They called it perception management, and it became a central part of the American government during the 1980s. The aim was to tell dramatic stories that grabbed the public imagination, not just about the Middle East, but about Central America and the Soviet Union. And it didn't matter if the stories were true or not, providing they distracted people, and you, the politician, from having to deal with the intractable complexities of the real world.
Pause. I just want to call out a classic bit of Curtis's use of interstitial footage there, just zooming out to show the actual thing carrying the camera. It's just it's peak Curtis, right?
Yeah, perception management. I'll post. There's a paper about this. A guy, slightly shady guy, who's done a lot of conceptual work on this, is an Australian defence analyst called Carlo Kopp, and he did a paper. Essentially, he originated a lot of the thesis of perception management, and there's about 9 kind of key principles in perception management: preparation, credibility, multi-channel support, centralized control, security, flexibility, coordination, concealment, untruthful statements. I mean, it's the whole sort of gamut of how you set up these kind of, I mean, people popularly call them psyops as such, but essentially it is a kind of regime for, state propaganda versus, perceived external threats, but also internal domestic.
Can I show you guys the pyramid, by the way? Right, it's worth having another look at this, right? So it starts off down the bottom here, grounded in reality. So MK Ultra, Free Britney Spears, Project Mockingbird, Watergate, Big Tobacco lied about cancer, COINTELPRO, right? Then UFOs, which we're talking about, and Epstein is only in this area here, okay? JFK, Area 51, we're living in a simulation. Keeps on going up, watch. Reality denial. Okay, then you get like things like Michael Jackson still alive, Ted Cruz is the Zodiac killer, Stevie Wonder is not blind, Elvis is alive, all this sort of stuff, right?
Yeah.
Keep on going up. Now it starts to get kind of interesting because they, stuff about COVID and so on. Antifa doing January the 6th is there. You carry on. Biden is a robot. Blah blah blah. You carry on. This is now the anti-Semitic point of no return.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, AA, do you see why I made that joke about the ADL? I was only half joking.
Yeah. I mean, but once you get up here, look at some of the stuff that's actually in there, right? Pizzagate. I mean, there is quite a lot of stuff. I mean, I'm not big on that, but I know that there's something there, right? The trans agenda.
It's a thing of actually this is a specific part of the canonical strategy of information warfare. It's literally, as you say, it's called denial, and it's where they insert information that triggers a self-destructive process in the opponent's target system. So as you say, it has this kind of dissonance within. There's both the element, as it says, it's more detached from reality. It seems more extreme, but there's a certain doubt about that as well, and that begins to peel people away.
But look, the deep state, the idea that there's a deep state is there on the right.
Yeah.
Look at what's all down here, but right. So in according to this, the notion of a deep state is that much more insane than the idea that Elvis is still alive.
Yeah. This is their ideal frame.
And is on par with the flat Earth.
Yeah, and I remember looking at this before. I'm trying to find one that isn't blurry on my side, but it's COVID is a bioweapon. It's quite high up, even though that's
it's quite it's in the next one down.
Completely plausible that they made that intended as about maybe got out of control, but that's completely reasonable. So yeah, some of these are just completely in bizarre places. I mean, soy boys. It's been proved that soy boys is right up at like you're full on anti-Semite, but soy boys is there's a lot of evidence behind soy boys. Things like a guy who drank a liter of soy milk a day, and he ended up getting man boobs and chronically low testosterone, but it was just the soy he was drinking. That's like, and it's established for animals as well. So that's perfectly reasonable. Hollow Earth, I'm not familiar with, but maybe I'm in the wrong forum.
Soros. I mean, George Soros literally does fund DAs all across America and spends millions upon millions of his own money promoting refugees and asylum seekers and helping them get across borders in Europe. This is like documented, and he's proud of it. And yet that is right up there with cultural Marxism, which is also like an actual thing. There was a cultural turn in Marxism. Antonio Gramsci, the Frankfurt School, like this is like stuff I was taught. But there it is, right up there in detached from reality. Whereas UFOs are all the way down here. So.
And Great Replacement, I don't want to get your stream banned, but Great Replacement, just a theory from a French writer who actually calls himself a Zionist, so it's unlikely that that's anti-Semitic, and the idea that that's so the chart itself is a conspiracy, isn't it? It's
yeah, and I noticed, by the way, it was this chart has gone viral on Reddit, and then the media picked that up, and then the media sent that around even more. So they wanted you to see that chart for some reason. So anyway,
sorry.
Oh, you see? Sorry, go on.
Just the idea that Epstein and JFK are in the Leaving Reality is completely mad. But anyway,
yeah, you build the confliction into the schematic as part of the this disinformation process. As I say, that we are accused of disinformation. It is they who have formulated classic disinformation as a counter-intel technique.
Just very briefly, I do agree with AA with his school of schizo term. You speak to the school of schizo people. It's quite hard to speak to them because everything's fake. Trump's assassination attempt is fake, and it's like I think you've got to be critical. Obviously, the normie take is ludicrous, but the everything's a conspiracy take is equally lazy. Maybe that's an obvious.
I mean, I was giving a talk once, and I started getting heckled by a guy who was having a go at me because I was acting as if Vladimir Putin was actually in conflict with the British state. And they were like, yeah, clearly they're on the same side. And I'm like, well, they're at war. So, and to, like beyond a certain level, just the entire world becomes meaningless, right? Yeah. If Vladimir Putin and our elites aren't actually at odds, but are secretly mates under the table, it's just like, well, all of history is fake. it's what's the point at that level? You know what I mean? So,
and I think it becomes a false comfort for them. A couple of things can happen. You can lose your humanity because everything's just fake, and so you don't have any. For example, in the Trump thing, you don't have any sympathy for anyone, even if someone died, because it's all like fake. And then you also it's a comforting illusion. I sort of remember Thomas Pynchon sort of having this as a theme in Gravity's Rainbow, but it's a kind of the conspiracy world itself becomes a kind of comfortable, illusory world where everything is a conspiracy. Doesn't that become kind of convenient and kind of you want it to be true because then there is an underlying intelligence or pattern.
And it diffuses political or other energy. It prevents you from taking real actions to address real issues in your life. For a lot of people who are kind of psychologically bereft a lot of the time, and in your polity where people are largely disorganized. So yeah.
I was just to add about that pyramid image. If you look at the bottom, it has got the name of the author, and it's Abby Richards. Very happy to put her own name forward and attach her name to it. If you look on a rather short, she's got a Wikipedia page though, and there are, I would say, identity reasons for what she's doing. Anyway, we can move.
Interesting. Yeah, her name is Abby. Yeah.
Yeah, she made.
Reality became less and less of an important factor in American politics. It wasn't what was real that was driving anything, or the facts driving anything. It was how you could turn those facts, or twist the facts, or even make up the facts to make your opponent look bad. So perception management became a device, and the facts could be twisted. Anything could be anything. It becomes, how can you manipulate the American people?
And in the process, reality becomes what?
Reality becomes simply something to play with to achieve that end. Reality is not important in this context. Reality is simply something that you handle.
But something was about to happen that would demonstrate dramatically just how far the American government had detached from reality. The Soviet Empire was about to implode. And no one, none of the politicians, or the journalists, or the think tank experts, or the economists, or the academics saw it coming.
Pause, please. That's just flat out not true. The Austrian school did see it coming, and we're talking about it as it was happening through the 80s. Obviously, it didn't happen all in one moment. Rothbard in particular, I mean, there's a speech on YouTube. You can watch the, what's it called, the Polish condition or something, the Polish disease, I think it is. He's talking about it happening in the midst of it. I think that speech was made in the mid 80s, and the change was palpable. Did not all just collapse in one moment, appearing strong until the last moment. It was visibly coming apart during Gorbachev's time or even before. So yeah, it's just nonsense, just a myth. So yeah,
body slammed Curtis there.
Yeah, just plain wrong. Yeah.
Like, this Curtis guy's shit. Like 18,000 hours in. To these
that's been Horace's stance from day one.
Yeah, sorry, nothing if not consistent.
I usually pause earlier in the show to say that, but he really emphasised like nobody of this kind, that kind got it right. No, the Austrian school did get it right.
See, I feel a bit better now because I don't have level of knowledge of some people on the stream, but at least I quite like the film.
In fairness, the Austrian school had been predicting the end of the Soviet Empire, of the Soviet Union, literally from 1920, and had said it every single year from 1920 till. So, I mean, there could be an argument that if you keep on saying it, eventually you'll be right.
They're like gold bugs, right? They just keep saying like gold's going to $10,000 an ounce next year or whatever it is. Just in the end, it might happen 200 years after they started saying it had happened. No, but like Mises did his socialism. Well, there was the socialism debate, the
calculation problem,
in the
1920 that paper was,
right, which is devastating. But I would just say that people like. Paul Samuelson is one example they always cited, but various other economists, obviously the neocons, Team B, people like that, they were all saying, no, the Soviet Union is immense. It's stronger than us and getting stronger. There was the missile gap thing in the 50s as well. So there were various people were saying, no, the Soviet Union is mighty and we should be scared of them. We should reorientate our society around it. And William Buckley, of course, saying we need to abandon libertarianism. I'm a libertarian, he said, but we need a totalitarian state until we've defeated the great menace.
No, I do have to tell you, Horace, this is the next thing I want to look at in my Stalin explorations, because my understanding of the calculation problem, and also of F.A. Hayek's knowledge problem, which is a kind of variation on the same theme. Calculation problem, if you don't know, for the benefit of Nick, it's about if you don't have prices, how do you calculate your input costs? Right? Let's say we're all manufacturers. Like I make cheese, Horace makes yogurt, you make pizzas, let's say, and Simon makes I don't know, something else that requires milk, Farley's rusks, I don't know. And you don't have prices attached to milk, right? There's the milk market. So on the free market, we would all bid for milk, right? And the price of milk would go up or down, so we could calculate our input costs. I need this much milk, it's going to cost me this much, right? So we can plan our whole production process based on those input costs. Under socialism, that those costs aren't there. Those input costs are removed. You just have to kind of like make it up. You have to decide how much milk you're going to allocate for cheese, how much you're going to allocate for this. Mises said, like, basically, this is like, because the economy is so complex, there's no way of doing this. Okay. And then the knowledge problem is on the consumer side. So it's like if you were going to the shop and suddenly, like, let's say you like Nescafe Gold coffee, Nick, right? And suddenly it's gone from like £2. Well, let's be more realistic in today's Britain. It's gone from like £8 for a thing for a jar of coffee to suddenly it's £12. And you're like, bloody hell, it's £4 more expensive. You've got a price signal that something's happened to cause that price to go up. You don't know what's happened, but you know that your coffee is £4 more expensive, and based on that, you can maybe you may think, oh, I like coffee, but I don't like it that much. Maybe on this occasion, I'll buy a box of tea bags instead, right, as a substitute good. So this is the knowledge problem, because information is conveyed in prices. Okay, so this is Mises and Hayek. There's stuff I'm cutting out, but we're in the middle of a stream. What I'm interested in is, how did Stalin, despite those really obvious and logical things that Mises and Hayek said, make that Soviet economy work for 30, 40 years without prices? Or did they have prices? Does anybody know? Like by all rational, like the Soviet Union should have just fallen apart in the middle of the 40s. How did it stay? How did they do anything? That's my question.
Unless anyone else is eager to jump in on this.
No, I'm just impressed that it came back to Stalin again. But go on.
Yeah, get Grover Frere on for the next.
Yeah, he's not good on stuff like that.
Thank you for that explanation, because I've got, with my English MA, that almost made sense to me. So thank you very much.
I think what they did was they never reached getting rid of all prices. They tried doing that, probably under war communism in the early 20s, and they just realized this is impossible. We cannot operate. So they had a pricing board or whatever, and they just did allocate prices according to what they thought the market would have, but with other things interfering, like politics interfering. It's probably just
or do they just steal the price structure of the West?
Probably the pricing board probably used that as a starting point. Yeah, this is the going rate in America or whatever for iron at the moment, and yeah, they probably did that, imitating prices from elsewhere.
People mentioning the NEP in the which is the new economic policy, that they abolished that in 1929.
Yeah.
So I want to know, like, from 1929 till 1953, how on earth did they do anything? Anyway, well, this is not something we'll get to the answer to here, but just telling people I'm interested in this question. So if you have any materials on it, let me know.
I think Stalin consulted a sort of orb. He like Saruman, he just came to some sort of orb, and he just decided intuitively.
Yeah, and there's another thing, right? There's a video. There's this channel called the Caspian Report, which has got like these beautiful maps. It's a huge channel. You know those like amazing maps, and he's got one I watched with my dad and my brother on how Russia now is going to utilize its rivers for transport. That because of sanctions, because of various different things, they're struggling to make enough shipments to China and other markets just using the existing roads. So they've started to use the rivers again. So they're sailing massive cargo ships up and down the rivers, and they're massively investing in this as we speak. But watching that video, Russia is massive. Like, you just don't, you know, when they do that thing where they unfill the globe and like Greenland is massive. You know, like those maps where like Greenland is absolutely huge on the map as opposed to the size it usually is. Well, he does that, and I'm like, hold on a second. All of so if you can imagine where Mongolia is, north of Mongolia is just a huge expanse of land. And I thought, hold on, I didn't know there was that much land above Mongolia, but it's just huge. And I'm thinking, even now, even today, how the hell does Moscow know what the hell is happening in these obscure cities and towns in the middle of nowhere that nobody's heard of? And they're huge. Like, there's one of these cities that this city, by the way, is really important. It's got 3 million people there. And I'm like, so it's not just the difficulty of the economy. It is also like, how the hell did they know what was happening in the country? Even now, how do they know what's happening in the country? I don't know. Go on, Simon. Sorry.
Oh, no, I wasn't going to say anything. I don't know. I do not know the answer, but it's an interesting question with whether there's a degree of local autonomy or what.
Well, can you come back with the answer the next week, Simon?
Yes.
Please?
I mean, if anybody knows, any Russians know how the hell you know what's happening. Because when we think of Russia, we think of St. Petersburg, Moscow, and a couple of other places. And forget, there's just like absolutely enormous expanses of land in the north, in the east, in the southeast, places that most people have never heard of, and there are millions of people there. And anyway,
apart from all those difficulties, it's also like got loads more corruption than here as well. So
I mean, maybe it's just always been like really decentralized, like local authorities do a lot, and Moscow just gets sent the report. Because I mean, reading Stalin, a reoccurring theme is like, oh, he's not happy with the report that comes back, so he sends iron laser down there to go and kick a few heads together, you know, stuff like that. But still, it's like, anyway, let's not get sidetracked on this. It's just something I wonder about.
Pause, please. I don't know, Curtis didn't say anything about that, but that was Nikolai and Elena Ceausescu having just been sentenced to death. I think it was on Christmas Day as well. Their regime had just fallen apart, and they were captured trying to escape. And they were tried like a joke trial for like 10 minutes and then sentenced to death, and they were executed. I think it was on Christmas Day that they were executed. And they did a mock-up version of it. They didn't show the real execution, but they showed the mock-up looked real on TV so that people would know they were dead. It was because the security service there, like apart from the police, like the armed police, heavily armed police, like rifles and grenades and stuff, they wouldn't stop fighting because they were personally loyal to the Ceausescus. But then they did, once they saw they were dead, they did stop fighting, and then the killing stopped. But Romania had a violent revolution for some weeks in 1991, I think, or 90. Yeah. He doesn't remark. He just shows that little bit for some reason.
Well, he's doing a funny little contrast here, I think. With this is from Jane Fonda's new workout video of 1985, and the aerobics craze of the 80s that she'd started a couple of years earlier. She coined the phrases "feel the burn," "no pain, no gain," and
the suggestion is that because Ceausescu had fallen, that Jane Fonda gave up on socialism.
Right. Well, she was actually a Ceausescuist. Okay, yeah.
It was. I think he does a cheeky little contrast here of women doing gym stuff and aerobics, and there's a woman on a chest fly machine, and then it cuts to Elena going, "You're breaking my arm," before they take them out and give them the good news.
I should mention that Jane Fonda was a massive SJW her entire life.
Exactly.
Right.
She never gave up.
I'm just looking at her thingy now.
Yeah,
she opposed the Vietnam War.
That's it.
She was taught in France by French intellectuals. She characterized herself as a small C communist, right?
Yeah. She literally went and hung out with the North Vietnamese army in 1972. A famous picture where she was sitting on an anti-aircraft gun that was shooting at American planes in Hanoi.
She supported the occupation of the Alcatraz Island by members of the American Indian movement. That was a massive thing in like the late 60s, early 70s. It's like that was like the big SJW cause then, and it's the only thing. Because I really like Marlon Brando, but I hated, when he won the Oscar for Godfather, where he was just like he got like a Native American up to accept it for him or something in protest or something.
Decline it, I think. Yeah.
Some bullshit. But look, she carries on. She hung out with Huey Newton and the Black Panthers, right? This is pretty radical, for she was involved in the feminist movement. She supported civil rights with Barbara Streisand and 10 other women. She established the Hollywood Women's Political Committee in 1984. I mean, she sounds like an absolute pain in the ass, this woman.
Absolutely. Yeah, she was keen on getting Walter Mondale in the 84 election, which obviously failed hilariously.
And even now, LGBTQ plus support. She set up something as a fundraiser to help members of the LGBTQ plus community during COVID. Right. She did an interview after the assassination of Harvey Milk, and she asked if the gay community was being discriminated against. She's just awful.
Do you know what? It's always the most all-American seeming people. It just doesn't seem convincing to me. It's a bit like the accusation I leveled at Timothy Leary that his life was just too easy. I mean, she's born to Henry Fonda and Francis Ford Seymour, a socialite. And a famous actor and a socialite, and it's like your life's too easy. There's only two ways you can go from that. No, there's like two or three. You can sort of embrace it in a kind of Sydney Sweeney-esque way and just say, "Yeah, isn't it cool? My life's amazing, and I'm hot." You can do what that chick does, who's in the Shades of Grey film. She was born to two famous actors, and so she always has a kind of weird, ironic sort of demeanor that she knows the whole thing's like a bit silly. And here I am on a talk show wearing a dress. You can sort of go slightly ironic, or you can go completely mental leftist, because you've been born with given everything, right? And it's too easy for you, so you have to go down one of these sort of slightly mental paths. That's my little theory.
There's basically nothing. Like, she's massive on environmentalism, right? She criticized Justin Trudeau and Mark Carney for not being green enough.
Yeah,
for not doing enough to tackle climate change. She's awful.
I assume she was the sister of Peter Fonda as well. He was known for being a bit of a lefty nut job as well, wasn't he? What are these things she's got on her ankles? Like
leg warmers.
Why? But like everything else naked, like I don't like. There's a fashion choice. Like
there's a sort of ballet dance thing that I remember them becoming hugely fashionable. I think there wasn't necessarily any real reason to use them in aerobics as such, but they became massively fashionable in the mid-80s. I mean, I remember she had her first workout book came out. I remember the sort of time, and it was, people forget aerobics was just this enormous kind of fitness craze. And just out of interest for people, as people know, I do post extra information on streams like source videos and things. And I'm offering today, I can either post the source video of Jane Fonda's aerobics session, this particular aerobics session, so you can feel the burn with Jane, or I can post the full video of the Ceausescu execution, the whole thing from start to finish. You can, and they can feel the bullet. Just in the chat, just say if you want, Elena copying it in the head or Jane copying it in the gym.
I would say, I'm going to just cast my vote now. The Ceausescu is real bad people, so I just thought it was like there was no real. No sorrow in seeing them put to.
Ideally, Simon, if you could do a sort of mashup with some weird music over the top, that would be amazing.
Floyd Kramer, jaunty jazz,
and then say, "But this was a fantasy." I'd like to hear you doing. You could probably do that at this point. You could put together something like this.
I have to say, people are going mostly for the execution at this stage, but send your votes in. It's a full video that's up, the whole trial, and you don't actually see the moment they get shot, but you'll see what Curtis puts up here.
One thing I will say that when you remember when I did the WWID stuff, I discovered that what's her name? Who was the very attractive American model who was famous for like the Diet Coke, the Diet Coke ads? Amazing ass. What's the name? That
Cindy Crawford.
What was it?
Yeah.
Cindy Crawford, right? Cindy Crawford also did this, like the Jane Fonda thing, where she brought out workout videos and got women in the gym and stuff. She did it like maybe like 5 or 6 or 7 years later. But what was interesting about Cindy Crawford's version is that it was much more, I don't want to say like right coded, but it was much more kind of Reagan code, much more like capitalist coded than Jane Fonda. Like Jane Fonda was obviously an SJW, a do-gooder, kind of like a lefty, whereas Crawford's version was much more about kind of just like, I'm doing this because I'm a strong person, strong woman type thing. But it was kind of a different thing. And it got me down a bit of a rabbit hole of like this whole scene of famous women who, because there was a few other ones as well. It wasn't just Jane Fonda. Who was the other one? That was it Alison,
Anthea Turner.
Not Anthea. There was another one in the 80s as well that had a workout vid.
Alison Moyet.
No,
it wasn't Alison.
Definitely not.
I don't think Alison Moyet was making workout videos, but
later it was Davina McCall. But you're talking about the 80s. There was
American, British,
Annika Rice.
Annika Rice. Try to remember who it was now. Hold on a minute.
Michaela Strachan. I'm just throwing out names.
Annika.
But this was like a real thing, like a big craze.
Yeah, there were loads
happened in the that happened in the 80s, and I was just kind of
Jet.
Who was it? So, Chet from
Gladiators.
From Gladiators.
Is that Alan Partridge's favourite? You mean?
Yeah, Diane Udell.
So, but Jane Fonda was the original. I think was the original kind of breakthrough.
When it all went into hyperdrive. I mean, you'd had the Green Goddess in Britain and stuff like that, and slightly earlier. But yeah, Jane and aerobics was huge.
Sorry, was the Green Goddess the lady we saw in the one about Western Superman?
Yes, that's right.
What was her name again?
I can't remember her name. It's so long ago.
That was a brilliant piece of like, you know, that's what you get with Simon guys watching. Just, you know,
I mean, Cher had one.
I'm not even joking.
Yeah.
Well, it is genius. It brings both men and women can watch it for different reasons. That's the genius of it.
I will have to say that I have had more votes for the Ceausescu execution than I have for Jane and her form-fitting aerobics wear. Which,
see, that's what Jane was missing. If she'd have ended these sessions with an execution, she'd have got the male vote as well. Because the men aren't going to watch for very long. But unless you stick an execution in there.
Did you know Cher had a workout video?
Oh, yeah.
Makes sense.
So did Raquel Welch. She was a bit all right.
Yeah.
So
Cher was always throwing her clothes off in the 80s.
I mean, Cher is another one who's kind of like Madonna, in so much as they always try to stick her in as well, but not quite as bad as Madonna. But in my mind, Cher would be the next one that I'm dubious of.
Yeah, you've got I Got You, Babe. It's in His Kiss and Life After Love. It's quite hard to name. Turn Back Time, of course, but it's quite hard to.
She had like the big comeback in the 90s, didn't she? Cher. Anyway, let's go on.
Get ready to work out.
That was the other one, Heather Locklear, who was famous for playing like a cop on that show. She had like big blonde hair. That was another one. Yeah.
Pause. Yeah, I think that shot is real. That is their real bodies, their real blood and everything. But they didn't show. If they did show a shooting, that bit was faked or something. I think they didn't want to be able to identify the soldiers. Just another little tidbit as well is that one or more of the soldiers who was there, like tying her arms up and stuff, they said they couldn't believe how badly she stank. They said she smelled appalling. I don't know why. Is that just what evil does to you? I'm not sure.
Yeah, it's definitely the real one. You won't get an actor to do a hyperextension like old Ceausescu is doing there. Even Jane couldn't manage a position like that.
That's brilliant. That reminds me of Christopher Lloyd in Who Framed Roger Rabbit. I can't remember why.
The collapse of the Soviet Union also had a powerful effect on the West. For many, it symbolized the final failure of the dream that politics could be used to build a new kind of world. What was going to emerge instead was a new system that had nothing to do with politics. A system whose aim was not to try and change things, but rather to manage a post-political world. One of the first people to describe this dramatic change was a left-wing German political thinker called Ulrich Beck. Beck said that any politician who believed that they could take control of society and drive it forward to build a better future was now seen as dangerous. In the past, politicians might have been able to do this, but now they were faced with what he called a runaway world, where things were so complex and interconnected, and modern technologies so potentially dangerous, that it was impossible to predict the outcomes of anything you did. The catalogue of environmental disasters proved this. Politicians would have to give up any idea of trying to change the world.
Does anyone know what that bit of footage a minute ago was of that circular collapse into the ground? Like, what was that?
Not entirely sure. I think it could have been. There was an attempt at one point to use a small nuclear device to do a kind of fracking breach. It's one of the things actually I think that features in that Mirage Men film, where some kind of conspiracy theorist guys are talking to some guy at a convention about it was a kind of experiment in attempting to broach a natural gas reserve that went a bit wrong. It was a bit of a mess.
Cool, thank you.
Yeah, this Ulrich Beck guy, he comes up with basically the concept of the risk society. That's what he is charting is the change from societies that respond to natural disasters, plagues, famines, all that sort of stuff, to managing man-made risk, especially concentrating on things like nuclear disasters and climate change, failures of technology, and he has a number of concepts that go with that, where he talks about what he calls reflexive modernization, where societies enter this moment of critical reflection on their change into modernity after industrialization, and what happens is things like traditional institutions tend to be shunted to one side because they don't seem to address, quote, new risks in the world. There's a push to make individuals more independent, autonomous, and self-aware, and to go for alternative solutions. And what happens is, as people try to control risks more, in a sense, like we saw with the Power of Nightmares, people detect risks more because their imaginations become more activated by the possibilities of danger. And this is why things like the precautionary principle in green agenda becomes something that then drifts into politics. And so on. So increasingly society individuates, and then it starts to concentrate on the idea of, well, if we as individuals are having these struggles, what about the rest of the world? And then it extends into ideas of globalized risk as well. And therefore, the whole address of politics and society focuses towards ultimately his stage that he calls cosmopolitanism. In terms of vast worldwide management of problems. So a lot of the sort of undergirding of what happens in political, the sort of political theory of the Blair era is formed by Beck.
Instead, their new aim would be to try and predict the dangers in the future, and then find ways to...
Isn't this basically what Nicholas Nazim Taleb rages against? This whole kind of risk-centric view of the world.
I hope so. I'm not familiar with Taleb.
That's what the Black Swan was about. He calls it the Harvard solver industrial model or something, industrial complex, where they're just obsessed with the risk, a world that is predictable, basically.
Yes.
And so they don't see big things coming a lot.
That was right.
Does that relate to? Does Taleb say that if you over concentrate on trying to avoid risk, you become rigid and unadaptable? Is that?
Yeah. So there's the whole concept of fragility and anti-fragility, and that an anti-fragile system can actually deal with anything. It actually deal with unpredictable change, like unpredictability or uncertainty. And there is an economic angle in there, as you can imagine. I don't know if Taleb is an Austrian, but he's certainly that way in it. Like he's certainly that way inclined in his economics, anyway. So
avoid those risks. Although Beck came from the political left, the world he saw coming was deeply conservative. The picture he gave was of a political class reduced to trying to steer society into a dark and frightening future, constantly peering forward and trying to see the risks coming towards them.
Just want to address that particularly interesting shot there. I don't know. What do you guys think that is? Do you know what it is? I can tell you, but I'm curious as to what you think it is.
Is it fire coming out of an oil slick?
It is, yeah. I thought it was a volcano in Iceland, but it comes from a documentary by Werner Herzog called Lessons of Darkness. It's actually all these amazing shots of the burning oil fields in Kuwait after the Gulf War.
Pretty good guess, wasn't it?
Yeah,
that might be. Yeah, I've seen almost all the Herzog documentaries. I'm not sure I've seen that one.
I'll post a link after. Yeah.
Because he'd probably say nature is cruel, everything is futile. Because you pause, and I don't want to do a double pause. I was going to say when he said the world was deeply conservative that is predicted, it sounded much more like safetyism to me than anything I'd call conservative. I mean, that's stretching the use of the word conservative a little bit, isn't it? I mean, that's much more like the COVID safetyism world. Anyway, maybe that's just a semantic point. My goal is to never pause it myself. That one didn't count. I didn't say pause.
Their only aim, to avoid those risks and keep society stable.
It only lasted for a few seconds, so you're basically shocked you really didn't know what was going on at the time.
Where were you in the building and where was the explosion?
Nick, you're aiming to be like a kind of stream version of Claude Makelele, only doing like safe little passes, nothing too dramatic. Not going to give away possession, and a pause is quite a dramatic. It's like a long pass or something. So kind of...
That is actually how I play football now as well in my five-a-side team. Some days I can score, but a lot of the time I can't. So I just think, right, keep possession, have a high pass completion rate, and do some blocks and stuff.
I'd love to play. Where do you manage to get five-a-side game? I'd love to play five-a-side.
We have where you can play if you want, as long as you obviously, like me, you'll have to keep all your views hidden. But yeah, we play.
I'll come in my Maldini shirt from 20 years ago.
You're welcome to play. You have to be, over 40, so you qualified in that way.
Yeah.
No, you have to be 40-ish. And we don't have really young players. We have players in their 30s and 40s, and yeah, it's relatively competitive. And the only problem is they're all ultra normies. They're not even normies. They're like the regime. We got Bank of England. We got one. He's quit now, but he was at Chatham House. We had the editor of Newsnight, who's also now left. We had it's the ultimate regime. There's one guy who's a Christian who doesn't play that much now, who's watched one of my interviews and is on board. But the rest of all proper blob. But it's a good quality game. But not too good, you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's it. If it gets too competitive, you get the old butterflies, don't you?
But it's good. And, I just don't want to pause it because this is not one day we'll get me on a stream with stuff I know about because this is not my expert area. I don't want to frustrate the listener by pausing it. No, I didn't even pause this time, and I never will. Just
to answer a question in the chat, someone's asking, is this Timothy McVeigh ATF? Is it the Oklahoma City bombing? No, it's not. This was in January 1997. It was actually a bomb that was going off at a family planning clinic in Atlanta. It was a guy called Eric Rudolph. He was the man who, if people remember, far back as the Summer Olympics in 1996, he planted a bomb in Centennial Park in Atlanta where the Olympics were taking place. And he actually did 3 devices, and this was another one that went off before he was caught.
Oh my God!
But a system that could anticipate the future and keep society stable was already being built, pieced together from all kinds of different and sometimes surprising sources, all of them outside politics. One part of it was taking shape in a tiny town in the far northwest of the United States called East Wenatchee. It was a giant computer whose job was to make the future predictable. The man building it was a banker called Larry Fink. Back in 1986, Mr.
No, I never knew that Larry Fink came up in this. And I've watched this at least twice before, so that's interesting.
Fink's career had collapsed. He lost $100 million in a deal and had been sacked. He became determined it wouldn't happen again. Fink started a company called BlackRock and built a computer he called Aladdin. It is housed in a series of large sheds in the apple orchards outside Wenatchee. Fink's aim was to use the computer to predict with certainty what the risk of any deal or investment was going to be. The computer constantly monitors the world, and it takes things that it sees happening and then compares them to events in the past.
Pause.
It can do this because it has in its...
My only pause, 1 hour 42, but I just had to say, doesn't Fink sound like any supervillain? He lost his job, so he built the perfect supercomputer to destroy the world. I just thought,
I'm gonna be the Fink.
Exactly, he's got the perfect name. People already see him as a villain, but that's just textbook villain. I will have my revenge. Wait till you see the majesty of my computer. Sorry, had to say it.
Yeah.
Wasn't there a cartoon or something? Wasn't there a cartoon or something called Batfink as well?
Batfink, there was, yeah.
Was he a baddie?
No, he was the goodie.
Ah, sorry. Ruined it. The parallels don't stop there with Larry Fink either. It's not just his name or the building of a sort of doomsday machine. It's just everything about him.
But even the idea that he lost his job, you're like, I'll show you all. I just love that. He's a bullied office minion who then invents a supercomputer in revenge. But at least in Curtis's narrative.
The Fink was the famous WWF announcer, of course, Howard Finkel. Do you remember any WrestleMania, the guy with the moustache?
Yeah,
who did the introductions. His name was the Fink. So
yeah, I've been going mad on my wrestling. I've been watching all my wrestling documentaries recently to catch up. And I was watching the Yokozuna one the other day because you said he wasn't Japanese. Of course, he was Samoan. Yeah. I started watching all that. He ended up dying really early. Why? Ate too much.
Yeah, 800 pounds. Ridiculous.
What's that other noise? Is someone else watching someone else in the background?
Just addressing a comment in the chat there. George W. Jr. in 2008 had Fink rebuild the economy, which is why his company was so powerful. Yeah, I mean, after the 2008 financial crisis, the US government handed over about 130 billion in toxic assets for BlackRock to manage.
I was shocked to discover that BlackRock managed my pension the other day. I was looking through, and it just right at the bottom it was like managed by BlackRock. I was like, shit. That I didn't agree to that, but apparently they do. So there we are.
That is the main reason why their assets under management are so huge, is because they are trusted with pensions just as standard all over the West, I think.
Essentially, they are a kind of Aladdin is a risk assessment platform for investors. It's a lot of the companies, big investment groups say they don't necessarily completely rely on it, but they do take a lot of perspective from the historic data that's stored in it. There's an interesting article from the New Statesman about 12 years ago. One particular thing I picked up on that I thought was interesting. It said, privately, some market participants fret that BlackRock's genie is creating a new orthodoxy when it comes to analyzing assets. That is especially true for complex structures, which require its forensic expertise to unpick. Quote, nobody understands some of this stuff without going through BlackRock, says a portfolio manager who uses Aladdin and regularly trades with the firm. A potentially worrying development is that it is now possible to engineer bonds to maximize the chances of BlackRock investing in them.
One of the things that I always wonder about with BlackRock is because they wield so much power in the market, surely all the other firms just set themselves to follow BlackRock, whatever they do. Does that not happen? I imagine that just happens. So basically BlackRock just dictates the entire market.
Well, yeah, that article was 12 years ago where people were sort of being quoted as saying, yeah, we don't slavishly adhere to BlackRock, but that, as I say, that was 12 years ago. And now they've got, 12 trillion in under management.
Oh yeah, you've seen The Big Short, the movie, haven't you?
Once upon a time.
Who hasn't?
Well, you know what it's about. Yeah, it's a really good film. You know what it's about anyway. It's about the guys who went short the housing market before the housing market crashed in value in 2008. That was like a handful of, 10 or 20 hedge funds who did that, and they made a lot of money out of it. But everyone else in the market just thought housing doesn't go down. So BlackRock was probably on the wrong. I don't know what side they were on of that bet. Obviously, they came through it all right, but just conformism is just standard for loads of people.
Isn't that just like Warren Buffett's whole thing? Just go the other way all the time.
So his thing was value investing, which was like he would often buy things when they appeared to be doing badly because their price had crashed. But he was like, no, I've been waiting to buy this for ages, and now it's at the price I want. Right. I believe it's going to last, for a long time. So it's, so like sometimes like even Coca-Cola being one of the more solid, one of the most solid companies in the world. But during a general crash in prices, it goes down with everything else. Everything gets sold off. So he might buy stuff that's just dived 80, 90%, whatever, but he buys high quality stuff.
Isn't that also George Soros's thing?
He does a lot of complicated things. He's known as a guy who's brave on the short side. Yeah.
He shorted the pound, right?
Yeah, and loads of other currencies within a year or two either side of that as well. He people say he's the guy who broke the Bank of England, but he also did it to I think Italy, the Netherlands, maybe, I don't know, several other countries as well. They all tried to join the exchange rate mechanism, and he said you're not going to be able to sustain that, and I'll prove it. And he recruited loads of other people to go along with the same bet. And his activism, his investor activism, as it's called, helped create the effect that he wanted. It's like, we can crash this thing. It's not just, it's a prediction and an action. It's funny. But yeah,
who is more evil, Soros or Fink? Is it like the Joker versus Penguin?
I think Soros is evil because of all the things he does with his money. But like getting Britain out of the ERM was a good thing, right? Like they call it Black Wednesday, but people who were against the EU call it White Wednesday, and I agree with them.
The thing is that George Soros, I get the impression, is in some obscure way against the machine, whereas Larry Fink is the machine.
Mm-hmm.
If you ever actually read George Soros's books, like he's against like American imperialism and stuff like that. whereas I mean, I remember when Biden was in office, didn't the Fed just ring, like, weren't they in direct contact with Larry Fink during COVID and stuff like that? I seem to remember that it was just like, the Fed was just openly ringing up Larry Fink to get advice and stuff like that. It was weird.
Things seem to be, just crises seem to be created with BlackRock in mind. It's like, so we're going to do this thing, and then you're going to sort it out, right? So do you want the contract for that? And then, so then we're safe to do the thing, like the Ukraine thing. Like, no one was surprised when it was announced that BlackRock is the leading bidder for all the reconstruction contracts. It's like, well, reconstruction, we haven't even got to that. Do you know what I mean? Like, but
Larry Fink was very central, by the way, to my they're going to put the woke away call, because every year Larry Fink writes a letter to the CEOs, basically like a kind of Soviet commissar Gosplan writing to all the minions, right? And basically, like you just said, like in the coming year, here are the things. And in one of these ones, he's like, in recent years, everybody's been too political. We need to depoliticize it again. And he basically just writes it all out there in one of his letter to the CEOs. We're going to stop all this. Going to get out of like political activism for a while and go back to basics. So
having led it before as well.
Yeah. I don't want to anger you, but I noticed the other day Oren's still saying they're putting the woke away or haven't put it away. It's saying they're putting it away. Ironically.
But that's just sad. That's just sad. Not that Aaron Star of the Tucker Carlson show will care anymore. But
he's too big now. It was about the they didn't put the woke away. It was about the new it was the NFL gay guy prancing around, the cheerleader.
If you're talking Soros versus Fink, I mean, there is one thing you could give Soros credit for. He did help put the boot into the Soviet Union. He helped fund all their it's probably in partnership with the the NED and USAID and stuff, but because he's been working with those for decades. But like in the 80s, maybe 70s, at least the 80s, like he was funding all the like Charter 77 and helping all the dissidents like cause trouble in Poland, Czechoslovakia, everywhere. So could say one thing in the pro column for Soros.
Did you get impression reading his books? I'm going off far less knowledge than you, but I always thought it was to do with his childhood with the Nazis, that he just wanted to avoid any conflict in Europe, and so that he's actually motivated by this, one world thing. Although he did, of course, famously also call his time helping said Germans a happy making time as well. So that was strange. But wasn't he just terrified of conflict in Europe ever happening again?
Yeah, and I think he was helping incorporate Eastern Europe. Like he was looking ahead to incorporating Eastern Europe into the EU idea as well, and things like this. So yeah, he's a total globalist, anti-nationalist, anti-white, pro-immigration, everything. Yeah, he's evil. Of all the things in the cons column, there is one you could put in the one accidental.
I was just talking about his motivation versus a Fink, for example. But
I'm pretty sure Soros is anti-Zionist as well.
He probably will, because it's are we allowed to say ethno state? Something, he's not going to be pro that, is he? If he wants everything to be one big blob.
I've never looked into that with Soros myself, but my erstwhile colleague I did a few streams with, Gilad Atzmon, who's from Israel, he said that no, like Soros is just posturing on that. He is a Zionist, like a soft Zionist. A lot of people, in the same way that a lot of people are just against the settlements or against Netanyahu, or against the current rate of killing, sort of thing. Yeah,
like a Dave Smith.
Dave Smith is more against it than that, I think.
Okay, all right.
But yeah,
something like that. Okay, all right.
The past 50 years, not just financial, but all kinds of events. Out of the millions and millions of correlations, the computer then spots possible disasters, possible dangers lying in the future, and moves the investments to avoid any radical change and keep the system stable.
Today I'm going to deliver 1.8 million reports,
execute 25,000 trades,
and avert 3,000 disasters.
I'm going to monitor interest rates in Europe,
silver prices in Asia,
droughts in the Midwest.
I'm going to witness 4 billion shares change hands on the New York Stock Exchange,
and record the effects on 14 trillion in assets across 20,000 portfolios.
I am Aladdin.
I am Aladdin. And today, I'll find the numbers behind the numbers.
I will see the trends the models don't.
Do you think that's where Nicki Minaj got the idea? That song? I am a dragon, I am Aladdin. That was a Nicki Minaj song, wasn't it?
Almost certainly.
Yeah.
Do you feel she's in your underrated or overrated canon?
She's better than Madonna.
Goes without saying. And Cher.
She's got a hell of a massive ass, though, hasn't she? Didn't Nicki Minaj get like an ass transplant or something? I'm pretty sure she got plastic surgery to make her ass bigger. I could be making that up, but she does have an absolutely enormous ass. But anyway,
Super Bass was an absolute banger. I know this is like not quite the level you expect on this stream,
but I'm pretty sure that song, the one where she goes, "I am a dragon, I am Aladdin," is with Eminem. I think it's like Eminem and Nicki Minaj duet or something.
Larry Fink is behind it all.
Larry Fink.
Can I just say one thing because we pause it because it'll be funnier if I say it now. I wrote some notes on this ages ago. When I watched this film, but it's a long time ago, and I don't know what they mean. And I've written coming up soon. I've written women are stupid and think AI is real. And then I've written only Peter Hitchens can stop this, but I don't know what either of those things mean.
Sounds great though.
Yeah, it sounds like it's a good bit coming up.
Have you noticed, by the way, that Aaron Bastani has taken to just like quote tweeting leftists saying stupid things with a picture of Peter Hitchens in jail looking fed up? You notice that? Like, what's he up to? Is he crypto right posting all the time?
He loves Hitchens. It's not like crypto anymore. He's done like a couple of massive interviews with him. Just loves him. And he's also constantly doing that. Yeah, he's tricky, isn't he? But you've got to be careful. But he's definitely constantly trying to appeal to the sort of populist.
But they're having that same conversation on the other side. Oh, he posted about Stalin again. No, it's like AA. He keeps on. Oh, he's talking about Corbyn in a good way now. You see, it's all coming together, Nick. It's all coming together.
We're approaching the moment of the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact of the online sphere.
Well, sorry, does that mean we're finally going to launch ourselves at them about 2 years from now? Yes.
I ain't saying nothing. I just want to say about this advert. It's quite a sinister advert. This whole thing of we are the people in the machine. It's a bit sinister.
It's very multicultural, isn't it? Every race is represented.
They're an organization like Spectre. We are everywhere. It's that kind of thing. It's the vibe I'm getting.
The risks.
I am Aladdin.
I am Aladdin, and I will get the data right.
I am 25 million lines of code.
Written by hundreds of people.
I have taken 25 million lines of coke.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
2 decades.
It is banking after all.
Smarter than any algorithm.
More powerful than any processor.
Because I am Aladdin.
Because I am Aladdin.
I am Aladdin.
I am Aladdin.
I mean, watching that ad, would it inspire you with the confidence? Because all I can think is, wonder if he was hired on merit. Wonder if that guy is like, do I want him managing my assets? That's all I was thinking during that. So, but maybe I'm not the target audience for BlackRock. And that dude is managing my assets, as I just revealed. So
I just felt there was a sort of tone in there, a delivery that was like, "We're going to find you and we're going to get you." It was like that.
Oh yeah, it's a sinister sort of sci-fi vibe that somehow it's like a Borg thing or like an X-File or like that film where it keeps passing on the demon from one person to another. I've forgotten the name of it, but it's got John Goodman in it and Elias Cortez. The other thing, by the way, AA, is that you've already really, by admitting that you're involved with BlackRock, you're not helping the idea that you're a sort of demoralization containment asset.
Paid literally by Larry Fink.
To demoralize by dissing Madonna. It's all adding up.
Where would that advert have been shown? Like, you wouldn't have that on at the Super Bowl halftime or whatever. Is it just only shown in like waiting, like premium business lounges at the airport and stuff? Or
probably, yeah.
Or like corporate conferences and stuff.
Aladdin has proved to be incredibly successful. The assets it guides and controls now amount to $15 trillion, which is 7% of the world's total wealth.
Does that mean it's gone down? Because nowadays it's more like 9 or 10, isn't it? So they lost
the figure
5.
I was quoted was 12.5, but who knows at the moment.
But Wenatchee was also a dramatic example of another kind of craving for stability and reassurance. More of its citizens took Prozac than practically any other town in America.
When a person's central nervous system is changed by an SSRI with that medicine, they will view things differently, and they will be strangers. They look at things differently. I have a chemical up here that changes me. I think differently. For me, it was like walking around like this for my whole life and really not knowing that I was nearsighted. I mean, really. I mean, no one had ever offered me glasses.
Have you ever taken any of those? A doctor gave me some once, and I came, well, an SSRI. I don't think it's Prozac, but I took it for like 2 days. I was like, this thing is rearranging my brain. So I could feel it. I was like, I'm not taking this. This is
I think I mentioned it on Century itself. I've taken SSRIs, and probably it was something like sertraline that you would have been given. And you go through an acclimatization period with medications like that, where you feel kind of spaced out, and you get these little kind of bursts of electricity that pass across your synapses. They call it the zaps, and it feels kind of quite disorientating. So this guy Jim Goodwin, he was known as the Pied Piper of Prozac. And he was kind of revolutionary in the mid-90s because the doctors were generally quite reluctant to hand out psychoactive medication like this. And what he did was, he was a therapist. He'd been in the army as a psychologist. And in this town of Wenatchee, people coming in, he just put them nearly all on Prozac straight away. So they all got a kind of boost from it. And he fell into conflict with a lot of the psychological establishment in the US, who said he was being unethical, and what you need to do is combine it with talking therapies. But there was a lot of people in Wenatchee who felt they'd been helped by him. And the interesting footage that Curtis has got there, you've got the sort of mundane storage blocks that BlackRock are using, and then the landscape, which is kind of, unostentatious now. It's kind of, there's very little sign of activity in the town or production, and it was quite a depressed place economically, and a lot of people seem to get a lot of benefit out of it. But he was quite a reasonably controversial figure, Goodwin. This footage is taken again from a PBS documentary which is called Welcome to Happy Valley, and I think it might have been shot by a BBC crew, as a matter of fact, because Curtis has some bits that are from that shoot, but they're not actually in the PBS documentary. We're going to see this girl Martha, who's quite amusing to listen to. Goodwin was essentially sort of speed testing the whole thing of, just as you have now, people go to the doctor and they just chuck antidepressants at you as a sort of, and you don't get access to talking therapies in the UK. I mean, not for 25, 30 years has that really been an option for people.
And I've just remembered what my notes were about. I don't want to spoil it, but it's the women start talking to an AI and having a relationship with it, thinking it's real. And the reason I said only Peter Hitchens can stop this, at the time I wrote that, he'd just had an argument with Grok where it said, "You can't insult me, you're not even real." So that's what I was thinking about.
Oh, I can't find it. They've changed the layout in here, so my timing is all off. But I was gonna. Oh, where is he? Where is he?
It's over.
That now sounds, have you seen that guy's impression of him? That now sounds more like the impression than the real Hitchens.
Let's just get a little bit of trivia. In terms of global antidepressant use, the UK is about the 4th most prolific country using antidepressants per capita of inhabitants. The top is Iceland, then Australia, then Portugal.
I'd have had America at the top.
America doesn't rate on the list, it seems. I don't know why, but this I think they say in this documentary that this was thought of as the Prozac capital of the US, but it wasn't really. It's mostly the flyover states.
It's because the NHS gives out a candy. That's why.
Yeah.
I was giving them the doctor just declared, "Oh yeah, you're depressed." I'm not fucking depressed. What are you giving me this for? I said I'm having trouble sleeping. Oh yeah, you're probably depressed. I'll just say you're depressed and I'll give you SSRI. I was like, no. That's not the thing. Anyway.
No, but what the heck is wrong with Iceland? It's got to just be the dark, right? Because there's nothing like existentially difficult about being in Iceland.
Sweden's quite up there. That's number 6, and Denmark as well at number 8. So yeah.
Like I said yesterday, next summer I'm going to stay in Iceland for 3 months. So maybe I'll go there and be depressed.
Yeah, sounds like it.
And then all of a sudden, here comes.
I mean, whenever I have gone to Iceland, it has been very depressing.
The supermarket Iceland is probably the most depressing of supermarkets, but the country.
Yeah, that's what I meant, Nick. That's what I meant.
Right.
They all speak
Somebody
immaculate
that
English,
says, okay,
though, in
now try.
Iceland, though.
Do they?
In the country, yeah.
Oh, in the country of Iceland.
A lot
In my
people-
imagination, the entirety of Iceland is made up of contestants for James Richardson, World's Strongest Man. Because everybody on World's Strongest Man is from like all of the strongest men are from Iceland for some reason.
Every woman is Bjork, and every man is the world's strongest man.
Yeah. Oh yeah, Bjork as well. She's better than Madonna.
Or
Clearly.
the presenter of Mastermind years ago, obviously.
Magnus
Magnuson.
He was Icelandic, was he?
Going by the name, I don't know.
He was also the world's strongest man in his youth.
Yeah.
He's like, I've started lifting this, so I'll finish. Sorry, I'm bringing jokes now. Actual jokes.
Wasn't he? He was a champion of something. Magnus Magnusson. Was he a chess champion or something, or like a quiz champion or something? He was clever just for some reason.
I used to
Anyway,
work for a doctor who was a champion handball player in Iceland. Apparently, that's a bit of a popular game there.
Wikipedia says he was Icelandic, yeah, Magnus Magnusson. Yeah.
what was he famous for before Mastermind?
Journalist, television presenter, translator, writer. I can't read the whole page. We'd get really boring for you.
No,
I can.
He was a reporter and stuff. Yeah.
There was a chess champion. I thought, is there another chess champion called Magnus Magnusson?
Yeah, there's Magnus Carlsen, who's the most famous, best player in the world right now.
Yeah, and I was reading about him. He's like a kind of chess Ronnie O'Sullivan, where he's like so good he gives up sometimes. I can't be bothered anymore.
Yeah, he does loads of internet videos and stuff. I've watched loads of his stuff. He's incredible. I'm amazed you don't know
Prozac
more
on,
about him.
And I tried it on, and for the first time in my life, I went, whoa, is this the way reality really is? Your perception can be changed, and it's frightening, and it's scary to people. It speaks of science fiction almost.
Well, the medicine just kind of lets you listen to what needs to go on. And then your doctor, every time you come back.
All right, this is super confusing. There was a strong man who was Iceland's strongest man called Magnus Magnusson.
Yeah, Magnus Ver Magnusson, wasn't it?
No, not to be confused with the strong man. That's a different strong man, Horace. There is an actual strong man called Magnus Magnusson, not to be confused with the Mastermind host Magnus Magnusson.
No, there was also a strong man called. Well, I used to watch World's Strongest Man. They called him Magnus Ver Magnusson.
Yes, as not to confuse him with the original Magnus Magnusson, not the Mastermind presenter, the strong man.
Another strong man called Magnus Magnusson.
There are two strong men called Magnus Magnusson, but one of them is Magnus Ver Magnusson. There we go. There we go.
He says, "You're looking so much better." And then he just, like Jim, every time I come in, he goes, "You are so beautiful," And he isn't even sucking up. I mean, he's being nice, You're beautiful, you're nice, you're friendly, you've got so much going for you. And I think, yeah, I do, yeah. So I go out and I tell my friends, oh, I feel so much better about myself. Mom goes out, oh, I feel so much better about myself. So your friends start saying, I've seen such an improvement. And everybody improves all the way around. They see improvement, it's like everybody's kind of...
Oh, hold on a second. The Magnus Magnusson that I was talking about actually came after Magnus Ver Magnusson, who was actually competing in the 80s. So he must have come across like Jeff Capes and stuff back in the day. Like he was back in that strongman era. So
I remember him. Yeah, he was around in the 90s. The Ver Magnusson. Yeah. So there was another Magnus Magnusson who was a famous Icelandic strongman after him.
Correct.
Yeah, I think I watched him. It was quite recent. That was like about 10, 20 years ago. I think I watched him.
Yeah, 2002 champion he was.
Yeah, I remember watching it around then.
Yeah, the missus loves watching that World's Strongest Man with James Richardson of Italian football fame.
From Gazzetta.
Gazzetta,
it's great when they put the big ball on the barrel. I think that's one of the best.
Yeah, and he still gets the ice cream out occasionally. You know, as a gimmick.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
2002 was also when I Am Alan Partridge season 2 came out, and there was a joke where someone like Partridge had all the James Bond films on tape, and he was going to watch them all in one weekend, and then Michael borrowed one of them and lent it to his mate, who recorded over the Bond film with Norfolk's Strongest Man. He says, "I'm sorry, I just really wanted to watch Norfolk's the World's Strongest Man." Well, now you've got Norfolk's Maddest Man. There you go.
And Maddest Man sounds like another Icelandic strongman. Anyway.
Brainwashing each other into being happy.
But there was a more effective way of reassuring people that was being developed that did not involve medication. It too came from computer systems, but this time artificial intelligence. But the way to do it...
Looking at the history of World's Strongest Men, it's only ever really been won by Americans, Brits, and Icelanders, and Poles. Why are they the strongman races then? There's one Canadian. It's usually a Brit, an American, or an Icelander who wins that tournament. What's the reason? Because Iceland's only got about 100,000 people. So how did they over-index in World's Strongest Men so much? Is there a... There must be like a
economic reasons and nothing else.
There must be a pure Viking genes or something, you know?
Has been discovered by accident. Back in the 1960s, there had been optimistic dreams that it would be possible to develop computers that could think like human beings. Scientists then spent years trying to program the rules that governed human thought. But they never worked. One computer scientist at MIT became so disillusioned that he decided to build a computer program that would parody these hopeless attempts. He was called Joseph Weizenbaum, and he built what he claimed was a computer psychotherapist. Just like a therapist, people could come and talk to the machine by typing in their problems. Weizenbaum called the program ELIZA. He modelled it on a real psychotherapist called Carl Rogers, who was famous for simply repeating back to the patient what they had just said. And that is what ELIZA did. The patient sat in front of the screen and typed in what they were feeling, and the program repeated it back to them.
So sorry to interrupt for a really trivial point yet again, but I asked on Twitter like a week ago, apropos to nothing, when you type, do you use the finger jab or do you touch type? Can you? Because I just woke up one day and I was just able to type. I didn't like learn or anything. I know like my mum went to like secretary school or something, which is something that people used to do back in the day. So she actually could touch type. But my dad still uses like the finger jab, search and jab, you know. What do you guys do? Can you touch type?
Yeah, I just learned to do it from sort of doing 20 years of administration work. It just happens. I don't know quite how.
Yeah, it's just like one day you can just do it, you know.
Yeah. The problem is if you think about it as well, when you're doing it, you stop doing it. I wonder if it's like playing an instrument in a way. I find if I think about how I'm doing it, it stops working. But if I just do it, my fingers just move to where they need to go. I don't know how it works.
So I'm excellent at touch typing. The only challenge is when I finally bought a new Mac and the keys are so light that you're used to hammering the last one. But I'm excellent at touch typing. It was from one course at school where we did IT and we learned to touch type. And it's the only course at school that was of any value because I was at a comprehensive school. And obviously the courses were all, the rest of it was dog shit. But that has actually still been in good stead my entire life. And just on that, the great comedian Patrice O'Neill, who's like a comedian, many people's favorites in the comedy world, he had a great bit on if it had known typing was going to be so important, he would have learned. He had a bit on how bad his typing is. Anyway, I know you like your comedy obscure references.
I thought Patrice O'Neill was a basketball player. But was,
no, he's probably the great. Aside from Norm Macdonald, he's probably the greatest stand-up comedian ever.
I thought he was a soul singer. Who am I thinking of? Alexander O'Neill. There we go. Sorry. Go on.
Okay, Nick Dixon, top 5 comedians. Go.
Well, Norm Macdonald's number 1. Patrice O'Neill. You could almost say Stuart Lee because of his past achievements and technique. Gary Shandling. And I suppose Woody Allen, even though that's now controversial.
He was good stand-up.
I've never seen Woody Allen.
I'm amazed I just bashed those out with such confidence. I was quite confident, wasn't I?
I'm not familiar with at least 3 of those, so I need to catch up with.
I'll post a link. His 60s stand-up is very good.
Hang on. That can't be true, Nimi. You know, because we talked about Larry Sanders last time at length, or in one of them. So you must know about Gary Shandling from that. Obviously, you know Woody Allen, and you obviously know Stuart Lee.
Yeah,
and you obviously know Norm Macdonald.
I've never seen. I see him talked about, but I've never actually watched him.
Who?
And I've never watched Patrice O'Neill, and I've never seen Larry Sanders stand up, and I've never seen Woody Allen stand up.
Well, Larry Sanders isn't a real person, but Gary Shandling, I've just gone with him not as a stand-up. I've gone with him as an over because I don't think Simon said stand-up. For pure stand-up, Patrice is hard to beat, and I think Norm Macdonald's stand-up's incredible, but all his stuff was incredible.
I need to catch up.
Watch Patrice Elephant in the Room. That's the big one.
My top 5 are all just Jackie Mason. It's the only one worth watching. Does nobody?
I like Seinfeld as a stand-up. I actually went and watched Seinfeld at the O2.
Oh, really?
He was good too. I mean,
he's good. He's good. Obviously, he's a comedian.
It's not an intimate venue or anything, but he kind of, and he didn't make any effort to, like sometimes when comedians get like really rich and famous and things, they try to like still be relatable, or like he didn't make any bones about the fact that he's like a multimillionaire, and therefore it, like no part of his life is relatable to a normie.
I'm better than all of you. Yeah, he could always do that weird high status thing. Yeah, no, he's good. And my list was a very comedians list, but I'd change it as well if it was pure stand-up. But comedians always have slightly different. We have to watch so much of it.
Well, I know Stuart Lee's favorite comedian is this really obscure guy who just like repeats himself all the time.
Ted Chippington, is that
Ted Chippington, who is just like, what the fuck is that? Like, that is, I mean, I tried to watch it once and I didn't really understand what was happening.
It's basically anti-comedy. A guy called Ed Axel is a bit like that, and he was quite interesting to watch a couple of times. Yeah, it's anti-comedy. It can work. You maybe can have too much of it.
Interesting. Any favourites, Simon, that you'd like to?
Yeah, my top 5 positions are all filled by Robin Williams.
Oh no!
No, only joking. I'm
I
too
thought
busy
everyone's
to like
top.
comedy.
I thought everyone's favourite of all time was Tim Vine, wasn't it? But
it depends who you ask him. If you ask American, I've met Tim Vine. He's mates with my mate. If you ask Americans, they all say Richard Pryor. They all say Richard Pryor, and they might say Carlin. I actually don't rate Carlin at all as a stand-up, but those are the two they'll say. Of course, I left out Louis C.K., which is very controversial because many think he's the best. But Americans will give you a completely different answer, obviously, to Brits.
Yeah.
Richard Pryor's bit about when he met the mafia guys is really, really funny. If anyone wants to watch that on YouTube, that is lols.
I like Ken Goodwin as anti-comedy because I still don't really understand why. Like every time I watch, people are just pissing themselves. I just don't get Ken Goodwin as an act. So he's one of the ones I want to review with you, Nick. If you're familiar with the works of Ken Goodwin, because he's just like a mystery to me. There's something lost in translation there with him.
I watched a bit of him on the Comedian. That whole era is so different, though. It is strange. The whole era, none of it's funny now.
And you know what's weird about that?
Except for Manning. Manning was still the master.
Right? Watching that, you're like, oh, I can see why Roy Walker got the catchphrase gig, because he was like a bit better than all the others. And I can see why Jim Bowen got Bullseye, because Bowen was good as well. And who's the guy who ends up Mike Reed? Mike Reed's good as well. And they're the one. They're actually the ones who end up being.
You've got Frank Carson and you've got Bernard Manning. Yeah,
but they're also the ones who ended up being stars, and they do actually stand out when you watch them. But anyway,
true.
I just want to chuck in one more mention. Norm Macdonald was brilliant, but I also really like Stephen Wright. Do you know Stephen Wright?
Yeah,
his
yeah.
photograph.
Stephen Wright's always a choice. If you speak to like an intellectual, like an academic or someone, they'll always cite Stephen Wright because they just love how intellectual it is. Someone like Peter Kreeft, who wrote some books on Tolkien, he'll always, yeah. So it's a very intellectual choice. He is great. It's very unique. Yeah.
My picks are really normy compared to that now. I was going to be like, Ricky Gervais.
Stephen Wright's totally. Ricky Gervais is funny, yeah. No, Stephen Wright is totally mainstream, like, and anyone can get it. But I know what you mean. It works on your cerebrum somehow, doesn't it? It's
Yeah. So Emo Phillips is another similar one. Well, look, AA, are you saying Ricky Gervais is a stand-up? In which case, I'll leave the stream now. If you're saying Ricky Gervais is a comedian overall, then I can stay.
I
But
can't really remember his stand-up show. I remember them being quite funny. But
he's not a stand-up, you see. He's one of The Office is one of the great works of genius of all time in any medium. It's almost unfathomably good. Almost like proof of a god sort of good, kind of aesthetic perfection, like Goodfellas or something. Anyway, but his stand-up is just, he's not a stand-up. And so he's got some okay moments, but he's just not a stand-up. You can tell he's done it. He did it later when he was already famous. He didn't do the hard yards, and it was exposed brutally in that chat with Louis C.K., Seinfeld, and Chris Rock, and then Ricky Gervais, and they're all agreeing because they've done the hard.
I have to watch that now.
Oh, it's brilliant! We should do a stream on it. They've all done the hard yards of the coal face of the road in America, the circuit here, whereas he just come into it. You know, hey, I'm already famous. I'll be able to sell out this arena, and so they all agree instinctively on everything because they know. And he just comes in, and they always disagree with him because he doesn't know what he's talking about.
I'm trying to think now. Like genuinely, I don't know who I'd put in, and the ones I'm thinking of aren't actually stand-ups. Like Harry Hill's not an actual stand-up comedian.
Oh, he was a stand-up for years. Yeah.
I mean,
if you go back and watch early Harry Hill, he's just doing it one-liners without any of the
there's
delivery.
something cerebral about Harry Hill in a kind of, it's almost like mathematical comedy.
Well, he was a doctor, wasn't he, famously?
But it's kind of like it's just not funny, but somehow it ends up being funny because he just repeats it 100 times.
And he didn't have all that originally. He just had the one-liners. When you watch him, there's early footage of him when he just does plain one-liners. Because I used to watch all this.
Who was that very nerdy comedian who would like literally just do PowerPoint presentations?
Arj Barker?
No, he was more recent.
Oh, Mark Thomas. No, the other guy, Dave Gorman.
Yeah, I mean, I remember watching him for a while. I don't know if he was funny, but I remember watching him. He wouldn't be like a top 5. I'm just trying to think of people, you know. I'd have to come back. I'll have a think about it as we watch.
Yeah, because you're up against. See, this is my area now. This is like.
Yeah,
this is like me going up against you on Stalin. So you've got to be ready.
Yeah. All right. I'm gonna get paper and pen. You guys carry on, and I'm gonna try to hash out a list. Okay.
Well, carry on talking about comedians.
No,
Men are all alike.
In what way?
They're always bugging us about something or other.
Can you think of a specific example?
Well, my boyfriend made me come here.
Your boyfriend made you come here?
He says I'm depressed much of the time.
I'm sorry to hear that you're depressed.
It's true. I am unhappy.
Do you think coming here will help you not to be unhappy?
Well, I need some help. That much seems certain.
One of the first people to use Eliza was Weizenbaum's secretary, and her reaction was something that he had not predicted at all.
Then I asked her to my office and sat her down at the keyboard, and then she began to type. And of course, I looked over her shoulder to make sure that everything was operating properly. After 2 or 3 interchanges with the machine, she turned to me and she said, "Would you mind leaving the room, please?"
And yet she knew, as Weizenbaum did, that Eliza didn't understand a single word that was being typed into it.
You're like my father in some ways. You don't argue with me.
Why do you think I don't argue with you?
You're afraid of me.
Pause.
Does it please you to think I'm afraid of you?
My father.
This is all conversations with women.
This is obviously quite reminiscent of how people use AI now. Like AI has not come along that much for all that the marketing and tried to tell you this is a new revolution. Like AI is still shit, obviously, as we've all found, right? And it's just it seems to me no closer to any actual thinking machine. I don't think there will ever. I'm very much a skeptic. I don't believe they'll ever. I like using AI tools, but it's not AI. It's not.
This is Curtis's classic problem he's expressing all the time, that, everything is based on feedback around your own preferences, you being reflected back to you. And you always sense that when you use AI for something, that it's always trying to kind of curve the results round to partly information that you've already suggested to it, and not really being much more expansive than that.
I stepped out for a sec. Did I miss the comedian chat, or did that not happen?
No.
Okay, good.
I was just going to insult you.
I've got my notepad in the background.
No worries.
I went to see Stuart Lee once, and he had a support act called Andrew something, who was really bloody funny. And I'm pretty sure he's the guy who's gone on to be like right wing. And he does like
Andrew Lawrence.
Is it Andrew Lawrence? He was fucking phenomenal when I saw him. This was like before he was on the internet and famous or whatever. He was really good. I don't know if you know him.
Oh yeah, Andrew's a friend of mine. I mean, I used to work with him back in the day. He's done my podcast as an interview. Yeah, top lad Andrew, and he's very, very funny. Yeah, he used to do all the clubs like I did before he was, openly right wing. And he's been cancelled like 3 or 4 times by the comedy industry. Initially, he was cancelled because he did a rant about how the panel shows are all women posing as comedians and ethnic comedians. He went full on.
I'm guessing he doesn't open for Stuart Lee anymore then.
No, indeed. In fact, Stuart Lee said he must be mentally ill when he wrote that. That was his only way of dealing with it, is like concern trolling. He said, I think Andrew Lawrence is mentally ill. It's like, could you just have a different opinion to you, Stuart? No, he must be mentally ill.
That's very Soviet.
I know. Welcome to the comedy world.
Someone in the chat has addressed my point about AI being shit and feeding back to you, and has said, great point, Simon. Let's explore this, which captures the tone of AI very well.
Nick, as a man who can, with some expertise, rule on comedians, where does Simon Amstel rank in the comedy world?
Well, Amstel, he's not as bad as you said. I mean, he had that quite funny show, didn't he, on Pop World, where he was quite funny at sort of skewering vain pop stars, which I thought was all right. But, that's something you'd watch on a Saturday morning before I even did comedy. In comedy, yeah, it's got that thing of like the Gervais thing of coming in after you're already famous elsewhere. I've seen him do work in progress shows back in the day. I've seen him. I see what you mean. He's like, you cited him as the worst possible. That dude, no, wasn't that bad. It was actually it's quite hard to do what he did, which was craft sort of thoughts that were sort of quasi profound with comedy. Although the comedy wouldn't pass muster in a club, but when you've got your own audience there or an Edinburgh audience, it was kind of decent. And then it couldn't keep repeating it, but he had some okay stuff.
I've actually got my pen and paper up, but I'm really worried, right? Because this is like you're in there with a film buff, and like he's come out with this Sight and Sound top 10, and you're like fucking Empire magazine or something. Yeah, Peter Kay, Russell Howard, Michael McIntyre. I mean, I'm just trying to make my list respectable.
We're all mentioning Tarkovsky and
and I'm just trying to make mine
well.
Yeah, well, the golf is immense, because when you're a comedian, you come off stage, people say, "Oh, you're really funny." Yeah. Tell you who I like, and they try and think of who they're talking about, and they're either talking about Lee Evans or Michael McIntyre, and I'm like, "Oh, you mean the most famous comedians in the country?" But they don't even know their names, and that's when it's so humbling, where you realize I've been doing this thing 10 years, and it's like, "Oh, the most famous comedians in the country, they don't even know their names." So you go, okay. So it's a kind of very low status profession where, it's like the Pele. They go, "Who's that lad the Brazilian who was good at football?" "Oh, Pele." It's like that. So they don't even know. So like, if they don't know Pele's name, they're not going to know blooming, Graham Lasso. I don't know why that came into my head, but they're not going to know like whoever you are. Like you're like in the championship or something. And it's like, of course, they're not going to know me. So they like, it's that kind of level. So of course, as an outsider, your references will be fairly broad. Go on.
Well, you were Steve Bull, and
Steve
Jerry
Bull,
Sadovitz.
Wolves, Division 1, Division 2 at the time. Yeah, solid, good striker.
So like Jerry Sadovitz would have been Graham Lasso, maybe.
Yeah,
because he was on TV and stuff.
Yeah, I'm Steve Bull. They're like, "Who's that Argentinian small lad handballed it? Do you mean Maradona?" We're going to have this conversation. It was always the same. They're struggling for the name, and it's the most famous comedian. By the way, I'd do a slightly normie list. If it was stand-up purely, I'd take out Shandling and I'd put in Bill Hicks, which is a bit of a normie choice, but he was very big when I was younger. It was a big deal.
I think he was great. He was a really good comedian. He was a really good joke teller. He was a master.
He was very good, in that sense.
Like with Jenny Eclair, where would she be as a footballer? Would she be like Ian Dowie or something?
Yeah, well, Leclerc was around in that 90s period when it was booming, and she was the token woman, wasn't she? Yeah.
Dreadful stuff.
Frank Skinner's a very good stand-up. I mean, he could be in your list, respectively. McIntyre could be in it.
He is on my list. So.
Oh, there you go. That makes sense.
Anyway, let's carry on. I will reveal my list after some deliberations. I have to get into a formation.
We're coming to a natural, end for this one.
I'll just say, Nick, I didn't think Simon Amstel was a shit comedian. I just didn't like him. He just seemed like an unpleasant guy.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Father's afraid of everybody. My father's afraid of everybody.
Weizenbaum was astonished. He discovered that everyone who tried Eliza became engrossed. They would sit for hours telling the machine about their inner feelings and incredibly intimate details of their lives. They also liked it because it was free of any kind of patronizing elitism. One person said, "After all, the computer doesn't burn out, look down on you, or try to have sex with you." What Eliza showed was that in an age of individualism, what made people feel secure was having themselves reflected back to them, just like in a mirror. Artificial intelligence changed direction and started to create new systems that did just that, but on a giant scale. They were called intelligent agents. They worked by monitoring individuals, gathering vast amounts of data about their past behaviour, and then looked for patterns and correlations from which they could predict what they would want in the future. It was a system that ordered the world in a way that was centred around you. And in an age of anxious individualism, frightened of the future, that was reassuring, just like Eliza. A safe bubble that protected you from the complexities of the world outside. But the applications of this new direction proved fruitful and profitable. If you liked that, you'll love this. What was rising up in different ways was a new system that promised to keep the world stable. Its tentacles reached into every area of our lives. Finance promised that it could control the unpredictability of the free market, while individuals were more and more monitored to stabilise their physical and mental states. And increasingly, the intelligent agents online predicted what people would want in the future and how they would behave. But the biggest change was to politics. In a world where the overriding aim was now stability, politics became just part of a wider system of managing the world. The old idea of democratic politics, that it gave a voice to the weak against the powerful, was eroded. And a resentment began to quietly grow out on the edges of society.
All right.
Yeah, there we go.
This is the natural break.
Yeah.
Nick, I have my list.
Oh, go on.
James Corden. No, I'm only messing around. Alan Carr. I'm still only messing around. Okay, genuinely. So I've got 5, and then I've got 2 like honourable mentions. So the honourable mentions I've already mentioned Andrew Lawrence, because he was really funny that time I saw him. And whenever I've actually watched one of his clips on Twitter, they're generally quite good. And Harry Hill, who I'm not sure if he even counts, but I used to like his Channel 4 show.
He does count. He was stand-up.
Like, he was genuinely funny. That Channel 4 show was really good. Like, pre-TV Burp, that was a very good show.
Oh yeah, I love that with the badgers. Yeah.
With the Badger Parade and Finsbury Park and all of that.
Finsbury Roy Park. Yeah.
Yeah. Got to have a system.
You've got to have a system. Yeah. And the mash sickness, the memory of the mash sickness.
Exactly. I mean, there was some just vivid stuff. I've put in Bob Monkhouse. Right, okay. Because Bob Monkhouse had this show on BBC. I don't know if you remember it, where he'd go out unscripted, and people in the audience would just shout out random stuff.
Yeah,
and he'd have a joke. Like he knew so many jokes.
Wouldn't he say that we got there in the end? Wouldn't he try and thread it together? Was that one?
And he also so people would shout out random things, and he'd just kind of make a routine on the fly. I always thought that was a very skillful show from Bob Monkhouse.
Didn't he literally write a massive book of all his jokes that got sort of left in a cab or something?
It got stolen or something, didn't it?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, he had all these archives and obsessive videotapes, and I could see why an INTJ would like Bob Monkhouse.
Bob Monkhouse did seem like the INTJ comedian. Like he kind of had a system.
Later, Jimmy Carr. Yeah, and I say this as someone who occasionally gets INTJ, but I did that test the other day. You reminded me of it, and I got, not to make it about me, but I always get INFJ, but the F is always 52%. I'm only just biased to feeling in a Brexit way, just slightly, and everything else I get the same.
I get INFJ as well. Yeah.
Did people?
Yeah.
Did people not like Monkhouse because he basically stole everybody's jokes? Because his
Monkhouse is from the earlier era, isn't he? So I don't know. He's in the earlier era, wasn't he? Because he's from the pre. There's basically two eras, in this. Well, we can divide it into these two broad eras of the classic joke tellers in the clubs, the men's clubs, and then the era of doing your own thing, talking about your own life, and it can't be ripped off. So there's such distinct eras. The comedians era that you like, they're all telling jokes, and that's why the catchphrase is the way I tell them, because they're all telling old jokes or established jokes or street jokes. So yeah, it's very hard for me to ever gauge the Monkhouse era and how it's perceived now, because it's such a break. It's like a revolution. It's like it's like a brutal Maris revolution. After that, they're all wiped away, and the way of doing it is completely changed.
So then I've got, and again, I'm saying this. I'm reminded of remember Stuart Lee's got that whole bit, like the nation's favorite comedic moment is Del Boy falling through the bar.
Yeah,
he's got such disdain for it. I feel like my pick here is a bit like that, but Billy Connolly.
Okay. No, everyone has to respect Billy Connolly.
I mean, he's good, wasn't he? He was good. He was genuinely funny. I remember watching him, and everybody was laughing.
No, great performer. Yeah, no, that'll be respectable. If you said that in comedy circles, that would be respectable. I mean, he came from working in a factory and making everyone laugh, and then just naturally evolved it, and he's a great performer. And all the really massive comedians do tend to be great performers. There's two kind of categories. Gary Delaney had this thing. Gary Delaney is quite interesting. He's a smart guy. He's a libertarian, kind of interesting thinker you don't really get in comedy. He had this theory about performers and writers, and you're either one or the other. And the writers are just they have to do their best with the performance. But the performers, natural performers, usually the ones that can go massive, like a Michael McIntyre or a Richard Pryor or someone, and they're natural performers, and they just can fill arenas. I'm not sure it totally works, because I think Seinfeld is a writer, but in general, it's quite a good rule. Anyway, go on.
So my next one is Seinfeld. Right.
Yeah.
Frank Skinner, which I feel feels a bit. I'm not actually sure if I've seen any Frank Skinner stand up. I can't remember any Frank Skinner stand up.
I used to have the VHS. I saw
the few times I have seen him, he was generally pretty good.
I had the VHS box.
Has there ever been someone more dogged by dodgy partners than Frank? Like, you just have to lug around Badil with him for ages. But
right.
So yeah, there's Skinner, and I do think Frank Skinner's a genuinely funny guy. I used to listen to his radio show a lot.
There's a really funny joke I want to tell, but I don't know. It has a word that I don't know if I can say on YouTube, so I don't know.
You can use a first letter.
Can you say a word beginning with A that means a certain part of the anatomy?
Demonetized.
Never mind. I can't tell the joke. It doesn't matter. Carry on.
Yeah.
And then Stuart Lee, obviously. It's a quite boring list in the end. But
I'm surprised you didn't have Lee higher because you're a Lee obsessive. You're a Lee super fan.
Well, look, Lee is the top.
Oh, I thought.
I went in reverse order. I was going up.
So
I was going up. Yeah.
Oh, I'm
yeah.
so sorry.
I want to add Jerry Sadowitz for an honourable mention, but the problem is I remember enjoying him, but it was so long ago, years ago, maybe 20 years ago or more, and he famously doesn't let his stuff be put out on recordings, so I can't remember now.
Yeah, I used to like Sadowitz. He had that Channel 5 show when I was growing up, weirdly.
Yeah.
I remember seeing him walk down Oxford Street, such a distinctive face. Do you know what?
And that's a callback to last week as well. You mentioned something related to Sadowitz.
Yeah.
He was Ebenezer
Goodwin. Magic tricks and very foul-mouthed comedy, which was very funny.
But now I feel like I need to go over. Name your list again, Nick. I need to kind of brush up.
Well, my list, I wasn't asked for stand-ups, so if I had to do my list of stand-ups, I'd go Norm number 1 all time, because he's just the all-time funniest of any. Actually, I did a thing at the Battle of Ideas, and it was who's the best comedian, and I said Norm Macdonald, and the cool people in the room knew him, and I won over a few who didn't even know him. But I realized after, most people didn't even know who he was. Kind of what I was saying earlier. They didn't even know who he was. So bloody Dominic Frisby won by just doing John Cleese. So I was never going to compete with that because people didn't know who the heck Norm Macdonald was. But I would have Norm number 1, and then Patrice O'Neill number 2. And many people would have number 1. I mean, when it comes to stand-up, you've got to make a case for people like Chappelle. But I think I'd go what I said before. Woody Allen's got to be somewhere in there for me as a stand-up because he was very influential for me. I'd go Woody Allen, Bill Hicks, even though I'm not sure this is really my list, and then Stuart Lee, who I said before. But I kind of hate myself putting Stuart Lee in there. And then Louis C.K. should probably be in there, but I now hate him as a kind of degenerate leftist. So I don't know. It's hard to know. I want some honourable mentions as well, which is almost like Louis C.K. in his peak era, and Bill Burr before he went woke would have a decent shout as well. These are nearly all Americans. Something like that would be... Yeah, Andrew Lawrence could get a mention for me as well. It's quite hard because I know these people. Oh, Simon Evans, even though he's a friend of mine, I think would be a contender as well. And I watched him on the telly growing up, and now he's my mate, so that's a funny one. It'd be very hard for me, though, because I know all these people, and I don't know the American ones. And I've opened for Theo Von, for example, so he'd have a shout.
He's good. I watched him the other day for the first time.
But Norm, I'm absolutely confident. Patrice O'Neill, I'm absolutely confident. I think I have to have Woody Allen because he was such an influence growing up. After that, I'm not even sure I want to commit. I'll have to get back to you because for me, it's a very high stakes list.
Okay.
Anyway,
all right.
Sorry, I got carried away there. It was not even what this is about.
There's been a few super chats. Christopher Zen says Scorpion's song "Winds of Change" was written by the CIA, and it was their biggest hit. Broman Hank says, I wanted to ask you, read Tom Skinner on X. When they push someone, what do you think is the mechanics? Would they approach him first, for example? I just think this, it could just be capitalizing on somebody who they see is kind of in the right direction, but fairly safe, But I'm sure that they would have written to him, "Oh, JD Vance wants to meet you." How else are they're going to have to write to him or his agent or his manager or whatever, Right Rider says Vanta Black is a kind of covering that allows no light to escape, thus making any vehicle covered in it blacker than the night sky. Look it up. So that's Vanta Black. James Murr says something very fishy with Tucker. He exclusively refers to the CIA as CIA. He says, I hate CIA. My dad was in CIA, etc. Yeah, that is a bit unusual. Either he is LARPing Fed speech passions for attention, or he is a Fed. Also notice his Kabbalah bracelet, which is a connection that he has with none other than Madonna, of course, who is also famous for being into Kabbalah with a K.
True.
And somebody has actually sent me this clip of Madonna. Oh my God! Look, what on earth? Look.
I can't believe I have to.
Look at that.
Yeah.
Oh, revolting creature. So yeah. I don't have a problem with his Kabbalah bracelet, but I do think that is a very interesting thing. Who everybody calls it the CIA, right? But he always just says CIA.
That must come from it being how his dad always said it, right? It must be the insider way to say it.
Osman Bismarckman says, this is a very evil hour in Australia. Good night. Oh, by the way, I created 10 new mods yesterday, and somebody DM'd me to say the problem is the old mod team were all available when I used to do my shows in the evening. And obviously they're unavailable when I do my streams now, which is why they're not around, which is fair enough, I suppose. Brulaham says, forgive my recent absence. It is explained by my stay at a re-education camp. I can now conclusively certify Stalin is responsible for no death ever. Good day, Comrade Parvini, Comrade Roberts, Comrade Horace, and Comrade Dixon.
Good day. Did you decide on a word, by the way? You knew Comrade word.
They all sound shit. That's the problem.
Yeah. I say stick with the rapper one they use. It's
I tried to make it Fraser, but that was like shot down in flames.
That's too gay. Yeah, it's kind of gay Latin public school vibes.
Was there a guy called Daniel Kitson?
Of course. Well, Kitson, yeah. And I see now you're talking about something. See, now you're getting into it. I've actually forgotten a lot of this. Like I've sort of forgetting like a war trauma. I've forgotten. This used to be my life every day, obsessively. Kitson was known, accepted by basically every English British comedian as the best, without really anyone seriously questioning it. And that was kind of just established and accepted. So yeah, you could take it. Of course, he's the ultimate leftist, and he even hates anyone on the right, and he hates anyone even being at his shows if they're not an ultra left. And then he went woke like all lefties, and it was incredibly annoying. Yeah,
I'm sure I saw him like opening for Stuart Lee or something once as well, and being like, "Wow, he's brilliant, that guy."
Yeah,
just like Andrew Lawrence. It's like, does Stuart Lee just get his pick of any decent guy and says like, "Come with me, you can be the support act or whatever."
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, back in the day, he must have had he was mates with Kitson back in the day. I remember him talking to him on a sort of radio show with Herring and Kitson, and he couldn't understand Kitson's disdain. You'll get this. Kitson had a disdain for his own audience, and Shirley ended up saying, "Do you have some sort of private income? Like, how can you have such disdain for your?" He didn't want to build an audience. But he ended up building this cliquey audience where he just emailed them and they were going to just come to a show, which kind of now is standard. But he was kind of an early exponent of the 1,000 true fans theory. But I've actually seen him live a couple of times doing shows, which is kind of strange to see and think about now, because now, of course, I would never talk to anyone who's a lefty, but or even ever look at them. But yeah, he was considered one of the best, certainly.
I remember, but I'd say that's the thing. It's so long ago, I can't remember anything about it. But I remember thinking, wow, this guy's really good at the time, Anyway, let's carry on. Utvara says, would you bring a Russian, Muslim, or tanky guest on? I mean, I've had a tanky. I had a tanky guest on very recently. Wouldn't have any problems talking to any Russians. Already Muslims, really. But what would we talk about? I mean, I guess from Russia, it's obvious because it's in the news. But like, is it just a guest who happens to be Muslim, or are we going to talk about like Muslim theology or something? Because I have no interest in that.
You could definitely talk about some of your shared interests in Middle Eastern stuff.
Yeah, I guess. But I mean, I have nothing like in principle against having anyone on, really, regardless of their point of view. But I don't like debates. I don't like debating, as people know. So, it'd have to just be like a normal guest or an interview like I did with Professor Fear or something.
Would you do a debate on whether debates are useful?
I think I kind of did that with Stelios. Right. I went back and forth where I basically said, like, here are my reasons for thinking debates are gay. You can watch that video if you want.
That was good stuff. That was high quality stuff. Like I hate the formal debate format as well. This is cringeworthy. But your tussle with Stelios was good quality stuff. I agreed with Stelios, I'm afraid, but yeah, still.
The debate format is just whether you've been to public school. So if you've been to a state school, none of it means anything. But you go to these public posh schools, and I'm guessing, then you go to Oxbridge, and it's all like, oh, the debate club. But we didn't learn any of that. So I think if you've been at a state school, you're like,
I just hate it though, Nick. Oh, look at my little tricks that I've learned.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Able to throw your opponent off, and
it's just about winning, like you say, and then but no one changes their mind. No one learns anything. It's just about I've crushed you, sir. Yeah, I agree.
You now have 2 minutes for your rebuttal, and then the alarm goes off. It's sad.
I think they're big on all this stuff in America, like mini UN.
UN, yeah.
That's a fuck. What are you? Crap. Chris Primer says the phone rings in the middle of the night. My father yells, "What you gonna do with your life?" "Oh, Daddy, dear, you're still number one. The girls, they want to have fun." So that was Cyndi Lauper. Right? Cyndi Lauper, also better than Madonna, obviously.
Mama dear, we're not the fortunate ones. Yeah, it's a working class girl, just wants to have fun. Great song.
Of course, that song was written by Captain Lou Albano.
Obviously.
Chris Primer says, there is a subreddit for women with AI boyfriends. Last time I heard, it had 15,000 members. My boyfriend is AI. Yeah, and the thing I saw is that the my girlfriend is AI had a lot fewer. So people were saying like, oh, look, actually, it's the girls who've got AI boyfriends, not the boys. So I'm guessing if it was like Sex Robot, that would be reversed.
Yeah, the women just want to talk and have the emotional connection. The men want the sex robot. Classic.
They just want a Tamagotchi of a man.
They want a man that listens to them while not reciting in his mind the 1994 AC Milan team. That's extremely detailed call back to a tweet.
Yeah, I can still do it too. Number one, Rossi. Number two was Panucci, I think, in 94.
3, Rijkaard.
No, 3 was always Maldini, mate.
I see. I
4,
tried.
4 would be Albertini.
You had that incredible team with Rijkaard, Hullet,
5
and
was
Van Basten.
5 was Costacurta. 6 was Baresi. 7 was Donadoni. I can do it all day long.
Do you know what? That's when I realized you and I pure INTJ, because I would also, obviously neither of us would want to listen to women. That's just that goes without saying. That's just all men. But then I wouldn't recite the squad numbers, but I might think about, I don't know, the magic of the Italia 90 contest and all the England scorers, but I wouldn't be able to do the squad. That's when you see I'm F and you're the T. I wouldn't be able to do the squad numbers of the AC.
I'm pretty sure number 8 was Desai. Don't quote me on. I reckon Desai wore number 8 in that Milan 94 side. People will be able to look it up now, but anyway.
But by then she had moved on.
I also, Nick, I mean, I didn't reveal this there, at a different time when I went through a period after I got divorced of dating. I devised the railroad date where there was a set course. I'd take them to the same bar, I'd walk them through the same conversation, and then I'd be able to gauge the differences. So it was the date was a constant. She was the variable. You see?
I can't wait for your PUA channel.
And then I spreadsheeted it and gave them ratings out of 10.
Of course you did.
And then was able from that to calculate like who to pursue.
What do you think the line is between INTJ and actual autism? That is hilarious, though. I mean, of course, all the PUAs and these kind of people have and systematize it, and the optimization people like Tim Ferriss systematize the date. He's like, meet them in one cafe, do 20 minutes each. They all come in one after the other, like job interviews. He optimized it to that degree. You've sort of done something similar there. Do you know what? I remember Famous Fuentes bit where he's like, women, it's all the same bag of tricks. They're not really, they don't have an impersonal sense of rationality. And if you look at the pickup artists, really, they're just the same bag. You sort of proved it there. You were able to systematize them. Did that make you respect them less?
Well, I mean, I just see all women as basically the same variations on the theme. So I was able to like pinpoint exactly. I'm trying to remember. Another thing is that it was a particular. It was like a speakeasy. Remember there was that era where they set up like the speakeasies. It was on Goode Street. This bar I used to take them to. It was trendy. It was under. I'd go like after work or whatever, wearing a blazer, and then you see, you book the drink, but you have nothing planned. But the street above had all restaurants on it, right? So I was able then to kind of like
gauge and adapt
what they were from where they'd actually pick. One girl picked the chicken place. Well, that was it. That was over.
But just quickly on that, I know you wanted to move on. It's not a PUA channel. What was I going to say? Oh yeah, what was what was the conversation? Oh, did you do the 3 locations classic thing from Pickup Artists, where it's like, by the time you go to 3 locations, right, they think they've had a journey, and they think I haven't done any of this, by the way, because I don't like women, but not that I like men. I just can't be bothered, but I've done normal relationships basically. But the 3 locations thing, though, they go on a journey with you and they feel they know you better. And if the idea is if you want to sleep with them, it'll be quicker because they think they know you because you've been to 3 separate locations. Did you apply that?
Not consciously. I was not aware. I was not aware of that particular trick. But thinking back on it, you did end up in 3 locations because there was the bar, there was the restaurant, and then there was the walk back.
Right.
You know.
Probably everyone wants to move on, but can you give me an idea what the set conversation was? Was it like Maldini?
I can't remember. There was a rail. It was like playing Doom or something. Where literally it's just a set of railroads that I take you through.
It's like a flow chart. If
like
chicken shot, no. If chicken, no.
Yeah, and you see
Italian, yes.
What was very interesting is that you could then see like, well, the ones who were just perfectly kept through the railroad very easily led, whereas the ones who challenge more, they keep on taking it off the rail. They take it off into different, they resist the railroad. I was like, oh, that's interesting. You can kind of see how much will they've got to break down.
Stop resisting the railroad. What? Oh, I said what would you like for a start?
It was kind of like, see, the thing was, I was trying to I joined this site and I only wanted to pay for 1 month. So I needed to min-max it for that 1 month because I wasn't going to pay for a second month. That was why I devised the system.
I wish I could be an INTJ. See, INFJ, we can't be as clinical as that. Although I realize those things are all made up by women as well, so probably nonsense.
Anyway, pick up a course at the academic agency, pick up foundations of logic, and you too could become an absolute psychopath. Nick, anything you want? Anything coming up, or you want?
Well, yeah, just my podcast later today, probably with Paul Cox. It'll be very funny, as they always are. I can't say that it might not be. You don't want to say you're going to be funny, but we're going to cover the Ricky Jones thing slightly late, but also the flag thing, so people like you can listen and understand it, and also the Epping Hotel thing. I think we're going to do it at 7 as a live stream as an experiment. And yeah, nickdixon.net for my other stuff, at NJDixon on Twitter. Thank you very much. Good to be here. Appreciate it.
Simon.
Yep, I'll hopefully be joining Nick on Saturday night on his channel again. Join us for a live stream review to be confirmed.
Yes.
Yeah, I've listened to 2 out of 3 of those so far, and they're really good. I've got nothing of mine to promote, so everyone listen to Nick and Simon's show on Saturdays.
I think I'll stick on some previous episodes in the car.
Yeah, people love them. And as I said, one person listened twice to the one that was 4 hours 38. Then the other day, I had the inevitable idiot. I almost said it to Simon, actually, going, this is way too long. I'm pretty patient, but even I couldn't listen. It's like, how about just don't listen then? Or maybe like listen in parts, or maybe listen to some of it. Or don't expect the entire world to revolve around you. You say, oh yeah, here we go. I've got it. This is way too long, 3 A's. You may want to take short parts of it and put them out on YouTube. Oh, thank you. I consider myself as patient and have more time to watch the most. However, even playing at double speed, I don't have over an hour to spend on this. Well, then don't. Like, that could be a solution. Oh, look, that's the pure Ricky Gervais joke. I don't want guitar lessons. It's like when they think you've put up guitar lessons and they scream, but I don't want guitar lessons. It's like, I'm not talking to you.
You do get
insane narcissism.
Here are some helpful pointers for how to make better videos. Yeah, I've only been doing this for 10 years.
But then one other guy likes the long video. So where are we now? We're back at square one, aren't we? Insanity.
You got to just ignore them all, Nick. Do your own thing.
That's what I did.
Yeah, absolutely.
You can tell.
But yeah, although I have noticed when you make videos, you do start noticing annoying tics when you watch them back. And I was like, I wish I hadn't done that. You know, I've recently just been saying okay way too much as a kind of filler, and now I've noticed it. I can't stop doing it. It's very annoying.
And that's Carl's thing. Oh, it was like, is she like, okay, right? He'll always say that, so you don't want to copy that.
Everybody's got their little tics, though. I think it's when I actually did videos scripted, people were like, "Yeah, wait, this is not like it's too like robotic. It's too it was too perfect." So people actually like, regardless of how much people say, "Oh, cut out the ums and don't say okay and stuff." When you actually do, when you script it, they don't like it. So
no, they love the ums, really.
Exactly. Anyway. Foundations of Rhetoric, people. Pick up the courses now, and I'll catch you all next week.
What goes on in this town is none of your business.
As long as I'm living here, it is.
Then maybe you shouldn't be living here!
Well, that's easily fixed.